Howdy there, buckaroos, and welcome to day one of the Fixed Ops Roundtable Wild West event. The jig is up, and we're ready to start the show. Here's the Dynamite Dame herself, Kara Delane.
Howdy, partners, and welcome to the Fixed Ops Roundtable Wild West event. I'm your co-host, Kara Delane. Are you ready for the roundup of the century? This is the Fixed Ops Roundtable's 19th event, and I reckon it's the dawn of a new frontier of automotive. So what are y'all waiting for? Let's giddy up and get this show started. Yeehaw! Meet us in the town square by using the chat feature on the right side of your screen. Just make sure to select everyone and not just host and panelist. Grab your boots and spurs. Starting our event, we've got Daryl Terrell from Matt Bauer's Chevrolet Metairie.
Everybody, welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. It is an honor to kick off our event today with the one and only Daryl Terrell, who is the Service and Parts Director of Matt Bauer's Chevrolet of Metairie and one of the great leaders in our industry. Daryl, welcome back to the event.
Ted, thank you for having me, man. Definitely honored to be a keynote speaker on your show here today, man. I really appreciate you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, well, let me tell you, you have really done a whole lot in this industry, and it's been noticed. And I want to, for those who don't know who you are, and those who do, take us back, give us a little bit of the backstory behind you, your career, how you got where you are today, and some of the things that are important to you.
Yeah, so I started off in this industry as young as I can remember. My dad, he was a service manager, so I guess you could say I was born into the industry. I had no choice, right? So, from as young as I can remember, I would go to work with my dad on Saturdays, and I would assist him in the shop. And then he used to always tell me, he would say, look, son, I don't want you to be in the automotive industry. I want you to be a doctor or a lawyer. So he sent me off to college, and I went to college for business, and I played college football. And I ended up having a college-ending injury, and I resorted back to what I know best, right? Fixing cars. And so I got a position as a lube tech at a dealership. And then I worked my way up through the ranks. I started a lube tech, then I became a mechanic, then I became a master mechanic, then a shop foreman. And then, I kept progressing, and I ended up becoming a service manager, and now I'm a fixed ops director here today. My story, man, is just, I always wanted to do better. I always looked at the best guy in the room, and I didn't, necessarily compare myself, but I looked at the best guy in the room, and I seen that he could do it, and it motivated me to do what he has done. So, and that's what pretty much got me to where I'm at today. And in this industry, man, I mean, if you want to go far, you got to look at the leaders around you, and ask them for help and ask them for direction. And a lot of leaders, well, not a lot, but mostly all leaders are willing to share their story and their success with you, and it can help you out in your career and help you in a direction where you need to go.
You are very much known for the people side of the business. Talk to us about that, the leadership qualities. I've heard you speak on this subject a couple times. You are very respected in the industry by your peers and by the people who work with you and alongside you. And I think that's probably the best way to put it. Uh, Give us some of that story as well.
Yeah, so I just love helping people in general, man. I love it's nothing more that warms my heart when you take a guy like it. This seriously warms my heart. Like to take a guy, um, you know, confidence is a big thing. So you take a guy, that's not too sure of himself, or he really has no direction of where he wants to go in life, and you give him a path. And you put him on this path, this course, and then when he starts to see this course actually work and take effect, and now he starts as a porter, right? And so then he works hard and he gets promoted to be a service advisor, and he's struggling, but you say, hey, look, get through the struggles. It's gonna be tough. Just follow my lead, and then now that guy becomes a express manager for you, and then he becomes a service manager for you. And then you see the best thing about it is that you see his family grow with him. Like you see his kids growing up, and you see he's able to buy a nice house for his family. He's able to provide better opportunities for his family. And that's the most rewarding thing for me in this industry, is to be able to help people give back to their families. And then the best thing is when they're able to help other people and show them what you taught them. So, I mean, I think in this industry, it's all about sharing knowledge, man, leading people. And that's one of the most rewarding things that warms my heart, Ted.
Darryl, how important is it? You just described a career path, right? Which a lot of us in this industry have followed, yourself included. How important is that for dealership employees to see that career path, to follow that path? Because I think one of your peers said it best. This is probably the best kept secret, the retail automotive industry, and how you can advance yourself.
Yeah, I think it's definitely tremendous. And to keep them on that career path, and not just keep them on that career path, but just show them and lead by example. I have a unique characteristic about myself, and I call it flipping a switch. It's I'm gonna try to explain it to you as best as I can, but I just have this mentality. Like once I flip the switch in my brain, nothing in this world matters besides me achieving that goal, and I won't be stopped until that goal is achieved. And it's kind of like you get into this zone where you're just zoned out. I love getting into the zone. End of the month time, end of the day time. I just compare it to just being in a fourth quarter, and we got to drive this ball against into the end zone. And I put myself in these situations in my mind, and I put myself in my not just myself, I'm sorry, but my team also. And we talk about it, and during the day, look, this is the fourth quarter, the game's online. You got the ball, we got to drive down the field. And we might be talking about writing 5 more tickets for the day or closing out 20 more hours. But we make it fun. We have a competitive atmosphere. But at the same time, we have a team culture to all help each other win.
Tell us about your team. How many technicians? How many advisors? What is it today? What was it when you first came aboard?
Yeah, when I first got to Matt Bauer's Chevy Metairie, we had a total of 12 technicians, including Express. We had 3 service advisors when I first got there, and the part of the culture that we helped change was like my first 2-3 weeks on the job there. I literally seen customers walk in the door, and we turn them away. I mean, I had service advisors helping back customer cars out and leaving a drive, that got them out. And to me, that was just totally unacceptable by all means. And I had to figure a way out to be able to help these customers coming in the door. So I was able to hire up. We have to 24 technicians right now, including Express. And I also added 3 more advisors, so we have to 6 service advisors now. And we went from writing an average of 23 tickets a day, and we just did a store record 2 days ago with 71 ROs. So the business doubled or almost almost tripled, and I mean now we're at a point where I want to keep growing. People call me crazy, but I still see more opportunity for us, and I feel like we're at a point where we're facing resistance. But me as a fixed op director, at this point I got to find a way to push the team past those boundaries, and I'll figure it out. And we're going to get pushed past those boundaries.
You've pushed yourself past a lot of boundaries as well. Talk to us about some of the challenges you've had, Darryl, along the way, in coming up. Nothing worthwhile is ever easy, they say, right? What are some of the things that you've had to face, that you've had to overcome, on your road to where you are today that helped made you, who you are?
Oh, Lord, I face challenges every single day. I don't even know where to start. As a technician, you don't really, you start off as a technician and you don't really know everything. You kind of have to learn everything on the fly. Like they can't teach you everything in school, or you won't learn everything in one day. So it's an industry where you're forever learning, the industry. And so as a technician, man, I had tons and tons of mistakes, and I had comebacks. I had cars that wasn't fixed correctly. But at the end of the day, you got to learn from your mistakes, and you correct them, and you get better. As a service manager, I made plenty of bad calls in my day, but you learn from these calls you make, because it's no handbook on what the right way to do anything. You have to figure this out on your own, and you got to go through the experiences. And when you make a mistake, you got to acknowledge the mistake you made and then learn from it, and not make the same mistakes over and over again. The biggest challenge I had, the biggest challenge and the hardest thing I've ever been through in my life was I lost my dad a month ago. That was the biggest thing I've ever been through, one of the biggest hurdles. But it actually motivates me to, like I said, my dad was one of the anchors in my life, man. And he got me into this industry. So it's actually a motivating factor for me to keep moving forward in this industry, and just to leave an impression on as many people as possible and to help as many people as possible.
What advice do you have for the people watching today, other leaders, looking out into 2023? It's going to be a tougher year in general for most dealerships. What do you see as you look out, and what goals do you have for yourself as well?
I say some key advice is as a leader in the industry is to set the tone for your team. If you gotta, get out on a drive and answer a phone or write a customer up, set the tone. If you gotta go in the shop and spice a few things up in the shop, throw a few competitions in the shop for technicians as far as turn hours. Just get out and set the tone, because this industry needs leaders right now. I really believe the automotive industry needs strong leaders to help, direct people. And it's definitely a difficult time because it's the most demanding time. We have the most and highest RO counts coming through the door. So I think we just need strong leaders to get out there and lead and set the tone for their team, and get out there and just do the right thing and keep the customers coming.
And that's part of your job as well. You're a mentor as well to your team, and you inspire and you lead by example. Talk to us a little bit about that, Darryl.
Look, man, I love it, man. I love it. So sometimes I might come in And I might feel like being a service supervisor one day, and I'll get on a drive and I'll talk so much trash to my advisors. I'll say, look, man, I'll write the most customers up, and I'll close out the most ROs today. And it just fires them up, just they talk trash back. They say, Darryl, you've been a mechanic, or you don't know what you're doing, but it's just a fun competitive spirit to get out on a drive and to have fun with your guys and compete with them. And for them to compete back, and the same thing in a shop, I might be in a shop and a guy I might feel might be, having a bad day or not the best day. And I'll be like, hey, man, you need me to put this engine in for you because it's taking you too long, and he'd be like, what? So it's all about having fun, knowing the guys that work for you, knowing what fires them up, knowing what buttons to push and when to push them. Timing's a big thing also. And then most importantly, if they are down, you need to be that guy they could come and talk to, and for you to pick them up. I think that you definitely have to build a relationship with your employees where you can read them and you understand you understand them. Because if you don't understand your employees and who's working for you, you won't get the results you're looking for. That's the breakthrough, is understanding who works for you and understanding what pushes their buttons and what's a turnoff for them.
And I don't think you could be doing what you do today unless you had done those things, unless you had come up through the retail ranks and done all those jobs, a technician and so on, and shop foreman, to be the person you are today.
Yes, Ted, most definitely. When I was in a shop, I used to always say, man, I used to just watch my service manager make mistakes or just say the wrong things, or, and I would say, man, like, if he would just do this shop will be rolling. Or if he just did this one thing, he put a one bonus out, like everybody will be rolling. And I would always tell myself, when I'm a service manager, that's the things I'm going to do to fire my shop up. That's the things I'm going to do to, to get my people motivated. And it just, small things, appreciation goes a long way in this industry. And that's one thing I always told myself, is that, watching when I was a technician and seeing the way, management ran things in a dealership, I would say, man, like, when it's my turn, it's game over.
I love it. Daryl, tell everybody, he's one of the great leaders in our industry. He's the service and parts director at Matt Bowers Chevrolet of Metairie. You can find him easily on social media and, certainly here at the Fixed Ops Roundtable. Daryl, I look forward to, I know we have a couple segments coming up, couple panels. So look forward to all that you contribute to the Fixed Ops community.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you for having me.
Hey, look forward to a great year as well. Daryl, tell everybody here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
remind us to never give up is the amazing best-selling author and speaker, Marcos Rossi.
Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. It is a great honor to present our conference with international speaker and best-selling author Marcos Rossi, who is here with us today. Not just any speaker, but Marcos is going to talk to us a little bit today about things that we may, in our industry and in life, take for granted on a daily basis, and which Marcos has an entirely different appreciation for. My friend, we're very humbled and honored to have you with us. Welcome to the Fixed Ops Roundtable, Marcos.
Oh, hello, Ted. Hello, everyone. Well, first, it's an honor for me to be here with you guys. And for those that don't know me, I was born like this, without arms and without legs too. And when I was born, the doctor said that I will live only until 30 years of age. Just that, only that. But I never allowed that the physical limitation or any thing that doctor said to me or my family stopped me to dreaming, to achieving, and the most important thing, attracting things for my life. So today I'm an international speaker, graduated in law school. I'm a surfer. I'm a skateboarder. I love going under the sea on scuba diving, on wreckage. I'm a singer. I'm a DJ in a nightclub. I play the drums on the carnival parade in Brazil, even without a finger to hold the sticks. But I play for 22 years. So I don't have nothing, and I do everything. People have everything and don't do nothing, or decide don't doing nothing, because being happy, it's a matter of choice, and you decide every single day. Since you wake up in the morning, you can complain or you can be grateful, and that's it. That's how I live, and that's why I reached so many impossible things for someone in my conditions, because it's not about your conditions, it's about your decisions. That creates our destiny.
You do a lot of work, Marcos. Tony Robbins, among other big names, and you speak to lots of people in lots of industries. And I think your message, I know your message is extremely strong. You are on a mission, and a lot of us don't appreciate the things that we have daily in life, but you've taken that to a whole new level.
Yes, because there's a lot of things, you guys, you take it for granted. You cannot take for granted things like, you know, when you are thirsty. Well, Ted, you have a glass of water at your side. If I'm thirsty, hey, I'm thirsty right now. But for me to drink water, I need to ask someone at the house, hey, or if you want to go to the bathroom, you don't need anyone. If you need to change your clothes. So you don't have problems in your life. You have situations, and all of these situations can be solved. So complaining will never get us to anywhere. So for me, when I understood that complaining, stopping complaining, changed my frequency to another level. So I started to attract things, people, money, everything, just by doing this. It's because it's all about energy. So when you are down, complaining, or angry, you are in a low frequency, and we will attract things with low frequency. So it's a simple exercise. I always do this challenge with my students all around the world. Okay. I challenge them, and I challenge you that are watching right now. Let's start 5 days. I'm not saying 5 years, not 5 months. I'm saying just 5 days from now, 5 days without complaining. And you cannot think, I'm in the challenge. Okay? 5 days without complaint. And you will see the things going to change. You're going to attract people, money, situations, and coincidence that doesn't exist. Simply doing that is the first step. First step, because another day I was in a TV interview, and they asked me, Marcos, what is the most powerful secret of success? And for me, it's one word: energy. Energy. If you have your energy up, you're in a good state, like a professional, this is you have a powerful peak state, you can do anything. But if you are in a lower state, nothing happens. Only complaining. That's it.
Marcos, how I can't imagine, okay, some of the things that you've, gone through and accomplished. How do we
Yes.
how do we build that energy? How do we get it, and how do we maintain it and keep it? Because I think you're right. People read each other's energy all day long.
Yes, but you need to take care of yours. So you have to build a system, or some activities, or some things you do every single day. And one of the most important thing that I learned since I was young, it's to be resourceful. So resourcefulness is the key. So because most of the people are focusing on the things that are missing in their lives. Okay, so well, I don't have the money. I don't have people to help me. I don't have the technology for my project. I don't have blah 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 blah. But you forget to look what you have. And I use that. Use the resources around you, not focus on what is missing, and you can do anything. For example, for me at school, because I study in a normal school, not for people with disabilities. And when we start writing, how it works, the teacher hold your hand. I said hand. And then you do some drawings or whatever to test your coordinations. And with me, they don't know what are we going to do with Marcos. And then my mom had a brilliant idea and very creative. She said, okay, well, let's pick up that plastic tape and put the pencil over here and put the tape, and then the same way yours, the teacher hold my arm, and I wrote. So be resourceful. Everything is around you, the opportunities, but you are looking, well, the things that you don't have. That's why you don't achieve.
And I think that's a whole different level of thinking. And a lot of
Yes.
us look past that, Marcos. And on a daily basis, you've learned your entire life is, being resourceful. And you've had a lot of the odds, or they say the odds, right, are against you, but you've defied those odds constantly,
Yes.
and you continue to
Constantly.
do that. And you are a great messenger, and you attract people towards you. I've seen that in the videos and
Yes.
things I've heard. It's amazing what you can
Yes.
accomplish when you have that right energy and you are
Yes.
resourceful, as you
The,
said.
the secret is living in the grateful state, the state of grace for the little things, for the little things. It doesn't mean that my life was always perfect. I don't have nothing wrong. When I was a teenager and I tried to talk, just talk. It was my first attempt to talk with a girl. I didn't have the powered wheelchair yet. So if you want to do something, you have a friend that helps, be resourceful. And then I look at my friend and say, hey, that girl is so cute. I want to talk to her. My first attempt to talk. I was 14 years old. And then, can you help me? I said to my friend and said, of course, I help you. He pushed the wheelchair near the girl and ran out. And I said, uh-oh, okay, I'm gonna talk. And then my first two words, she looked at me and said, get off. I want a full boy, not a half. Can you imagine that in your first attempt? There's nothing wrong and you to be sad in your life. But if you allow these bad feelings to be inside you for too much time, at that moment, it will born a limiting belief. And then when you have an opportunity in the future, you will not go. No, no, I'm not capable to complete someone, blah, blah, blah. And I was sad. I was down. But I have the blessing of having a father that was my first great mentor. My father used to live in the US for more than 30 years. And then he went to Brazil. Then he met my mom. And then I was born. Okay. And my father was mentored by Tony Robbins. So all my growing up as a child and teenager, and my father used to apply all these exercises and the philosophy at home. So I remember I was playing video games and my dad came in and said, hey, Marcos, can you stop for a while? And I was like a teenager. Oh, come on. I said, let me just say you something. Kid, the two most powerful words on universe are I am. And I said, okay, can I play? He said, no, 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 pay attention. The two most powerful words is I am. Everything you say you are, you attract to your life. Or worse, you are stuck in some of them. And I said, okay, let me ask you a question. And you will be playing the video game. Just a second. Can you please write down on the paper here? I have a device that I put in my arm to write. So he put that device in my arm and put the paper in front of me and say, write down right now 5 things that you are. And when you are in a bad state, everything grows. So I wrote down, I am ugly. I am a half. I am, and then he stopped me. Wait, no. I need you to write down 5 positive things. And the most important, things that you want to be, but you are not yet. Okay. I just wanted to play video game. I didn't understand at the time why he was doing this. I was so sad. So, okay, I was playing video games just to change my state, to do what I love and get my energy back. And then I wrote down, I am love. I am joy. I am handsome. I am a leader. I am rich. Paper, okay? Okay, I'm rich. And then when I finished, I said, okay, Dad, can I play? He said, just a second. One more thing. Come with me. And at the time, I used to go without wheelchair. I roll in the ground, like rolling very fast. And I rolled to my dad, and he entered on the bathroom. And then he put me on the little chair in front of the mirror and put that paper of the mirror, look at me and said, who are you? And I, as a teenager, I am love. I am joy. I am. He said, wait, no, stop. The most powerful resource on universe is the human emotion. So you need to embody that words. And then he said the magical phrase, you will only get out of the chair if you finish the exercise. And I said, okay, I'm not going to jump from this high. Okay. And then I just start saying, I am love. I am joy. I am handsome. I am a leader. I am rich. When I finished, well, I was waiting for a phrase of impact. No, my dad didn't say a word. He clapped his hand, put me on the ground, and is gone. And I said, whoa, adults. And on the next day, my father came to me and said, Marcos, let's go to the bathroom. And for 30 days, Ted, for 30 days, he put me on that chair in front of the mirror. And he made me repeat, who am I? Who I am in front of the mirror for 60 seconds. Repeat these 5 things. Repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. And then in the end, it starts to be part of your identity. And then you don't need to, force things and then the things start going on. And I understand if someone is going to love you, they will love you the way you are, not the way they want you to be. If you put your happiness in the hands of other people or other things, you will never be happy. Like, never, ever be happy. And then my life changed. And I don't have more problems with girls. Well, the problems have changed.
That is an amazing story. I know it's a true story. And
Yes. My dad
you
was.
start by believing in yourself and the affirmations that your father had you say in front of the mirror, to see that it's true, of course, and to believe that it's true. And that's
Yes.
changed your entire outlook and your entire life. And you're right. A lot of times we complain about the things that we may not have, right? But look at all the things that we do have, and we don't take those into account.
Yes. We need to look at what we have. Can you imagine surfing? Or can you imagine scuba diving? How? The guy can do scuba diving without hands because all the communications under the sea is made by hand. So we changed because you can use the resources around you, change the communications, we do the different equipment, and boom, nothing is impossible. You can do anything. And then you start to attract things. So my dad passed in 2017. 2018, Tony Robbins went to Brazil for the first time for a speech. And I was invited to open for him on stage, playing the drums on the Carnival Parade Band. So I played the drums, but listen, it wasn't easy like this because I didn't have the tickets. I wasn't supposed to be there. It was crazy. I was one day before the event, I was doing a speech in another state. And then my agent called me. I was going to the airport and say, Marcos, listen, Tony Robbins organizations in Brazil, they are searching for a samba school to play the drums on stage. You as a singer, you as a drummer, would you like to be in Tony Robbins' stage tomorrow? Man, how is in your life when opportunity shows up?
Yeah.
You said, okay, no, next time I'll go. No, let me check my schedule. No. And I say, okay. The fear, everybody has fear, but you need to deal with your fear. And okay, I'm going to do it even with fear, but I will do it because the mission is always bigger than the pain. The mission is always bigger than the pain. I said, okay, I'll be there. Boom. And I went. I played. I sang. And then in the end, I took a picture with him on the backstage. And he looked at me in the eyes. He got on his knees. And I said, stand up for God's sake. And he said, every person on this planet is equal. Eyes with eyes to me without hierarchy or nothing. Everyone is equal. And then he put his hands on my chest, boom. And he said, your mission is beautiful. You're going to help a lot of people in this world. I want to give you a gift. I said, gift? Hashtag fall down from the chair. gift. I want you as my personal guest on Date with Destiny, his training, 6 days in West Palm Beach. And I said, wow, thank you so much. Da, da, da. It was August. Date with Destiny is December. In December, my wife couldn't travel with me to the United States for visa things at the time. And I need help. I need help to eat, to change, to go to the bathroom, everything. If we're other people, other person, oh, okay, this is not for me. Okay, how I'm going to ask this to someone? It's so much exposure. No way. The mission is always bigger than the pain. And use the resources around you. Don't focus on what's missing. Okay, I will call everybody in my agenda, and someone is gonna want to go with me. And then I call a friend and said, "Okay, I'll go." I said, "Okay, there's one thing. You will have to be my nanny." And said, okay, I'll go. And we went. And then Tony invited me to share on stage, my friend from Brazil. And then I shared what I've learned over there, all these things. And in the end, people got emotional. I was emotional, and Tony was emotional. And he said, I want to give you a gift. Again, I want you to learn what we do here and help people all around. And he gave me all his trainings, all of them. And today, just long story short, I work with Tony in his event.
That is an amazing story, and very empowering too. All right, and emotional, you know. And when Tony Robbins does an event, there's a lot of people there in
Yes,
person and watching as well, Marcos. And
yes,
you know, that is the pinnacle of all. And you know, also, you know, that state of awareness and of what you have and the attitude, it all comes to a crescendo there.
yes. And since then, I started. I had to overcome my own fears too, because I was at the time 2018.
Mhm.
I already was a great speaker in Brazil. Everybody knows me in Brazil, and but my biggest fear was being on the digital space like we are today.
Really?
So yeah, all of my friends, biggest players in Brazil, they say, "Hey, Marcos, you should come to digital. Come on in." I said, "Oh no, I do gigs and in companies. I'm good." And but listen, God put me there, and all this coincidence. Tony Robbins pushed me and said, "Hey, go there and help people." How I'm going to help people that cannot afford buying an airplane ticket and go to the United States and learn all these things, and I need to go online. And then I started in 2018. I started my first course, like uh, not recorded course, like on Zoom. So once a week for 4 weeks, we were talking about um, how you understand why you do the things you do, self-development. And then on second week, we're talking about how achieving your goals. And then the third week, talking about the relationships, intimate relationship, because you want success. But if it's the thing is bad in your home, forget it. You cannot achieve it. So, and I just created that. But my first class, I have only 4 students, like four, 1, 2, 3, 4. I said, oh man. Then your brain start working, huh? Oh, this is not for you. Oh, no, no, no. Keep your uh, gigs on just on companies. And I said, no, the mission is always bigger than the pain. And then today I have 30, I'm going to the 32 classes graduated. I have students all around the world, like Japan, Germany, all around the world because of that decision. Once again, it's not your conditions, it's your decisions that create your destiny.
A great reminder, Marcos. And today you have a couple best-selling books you're an author of. You're speaking internationally all over the world, and you're helping people on a daily
That's my
basis.
mission.
And that mission is big. Okay, that's a huge mission. Um, I see your website, marcosrossi.com. You've got a big following on social media. Congratulations. That Instagram
Oh,
page
thank
and that
you.
I'm impressed with that YouTube page. Um, and by the way, I saw the video and we'll share that with the audience of you with mobility works and driving and a lot of things that we, like you said, we take these things for granted, but
Yes.
you've pushed yourself to a whole new level and have shown us what is possible with that right mind.
Yes, I started driving like in simulators because that doesn't exist. People like me in Brazil, in my country, it's impossible. No way, forget it. No, you can't. And I started driving like simulators, and then I became friends with another guy. They got an idea. They had like a mechanics or something, and started doing things on the car, and then his car, okay, and then boom, I'm driving, and then I came here to United States and said, man, here I am free. I can go anywhere. I can cross the street. Things that you take for granted, like crossing the street. We can't in Brazil. I can go to a mall and open the door, just hitting a button on the wall. I don't need no one with me. I can do anything. And then I went there and I saw their car. Wow. With ramps, you push a button on the ramp, and then I entered on the car. Oh my God, on the front seat. Whoa, it's like a dream come true. And the next time, the next interview, I will show the video driving that car.
I love it. All right, Marcos, if our audience wants to reach out to you, I know you work with organizations, you speak in front of big audiences, medium and smaller audience as well.
Yes.
What's the best way for our audience to reach out to you to learn more? Perhaps join your podcast. I see you've got that podcast as well in your books. What's the best way to reach out to you?
Yes, we can marcosrossi.com. You can find everything that, including the social medias. You have if you want I want a speech, you can just click there and go directly to the WhatsApp of the agent. Uh, that's it. And you can find me anywhere. Put my name in Google or whatever. Boom, it's gonna it's gonna show everything for you.
Last question for today. Here we are, end of January. We've started a new year. We're a couple weeks in. What advice do you have for our audience looking into 2023 as we start this year off? What can you suggest to our group as we start the year?
Yes, I just want to say for the last thing is because the limits are inside of our head. Okay, it's a concept that is inside of our head, and this concept can be unlearned. Okay, and you can do it too. So the time in our lives goes so fast. Oh man, we are finished January so fast. It was like yesterday. We were like mirroring the fireworks and making plans and everything. But there's a statistic that 95% of people, 95% of people in January, like 5 January, have this goals have failed in his
Yeah,
goals.
the
So
resolutions. Yep.
if you failed in your resolution, don't worry, you still have time. Go for it. Sometimes some bad things happen in our lives we are not waiting for, and it's like a punch in the face. But you need to understand, one of the biggest learning that I have from Tony, my mentor, is a life is always happening for you and not to you. I'm going to repeat, life is always happening for you and not to you. Oh, why me? No, it's for you. It's a gift. So I am grateful to God to being born in this body, because I know today the size of my mission. Life happened for me and not to me. So you can do anything. So, like is written here, never give up and go forward. And I see you at the top.
Marcos Rossi, great message to get our session going today. Marcos Rossi, everybody, great speaker, best-selling author, marcosrossi.com. Marcos Rossi with us today here at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Everybody wants to be part of a bigger story. And to see something like this in such a big industry is a big accomplishment.
When I heard about Rapid Recon, I was like, man, that's ahead of its time. And now I feel like it's absolutely revolutionary. We are changing the automotive industry one dealership at a time.
Just about anybody can tell you that you are struggling or that you might have a bottleneck somewhere. But what do you do about that?
Rapid Recon is the one software that unifies all the departments. You're going to go from chaos to organization.
Reconditioning is all about making a vehicle ready for sale. The whole idea of Rapid Recon is to take 15 days average to get these cars ready to sell and take it down to 3 to 5.
You can see the bottlenecks that we can eliminate. As a dealer, to be able to log into a website or your app on the phone and know precisely where each car is from all your dealerships, that's invaluable.
We can give the decision makers information that they need to make the decision immediately.
It's live. You can log into Rapid Recon and see exactly where you are. What it means is making decisions based on true information. It makes all the difference in the world.
What gets measured gets better over time, and Rapid Recon does that for us. There's nothing like that in the market.
I oversee 19 of our stores. We're processing 2,500 cars a month. You need technology to make it more effective and overall more profitable.
Rapid Recon is more than software. What's unique about Rapid Recon is the people that come with it.
One of the reasons why we're so good at this is because a lot of us did come out of the car industry.
The software is amazing and it's a tool, but we're not software people. We're car people.
And we know the pains that dealers are going through, not because we've been taught it, but because we've lived it.
We get so much praise for our customer service and how well we take care of our customers, and it's because we genuinely care.
They're not going through an automated system. When they call, it's a live person right there. Rapid Recon is just not the name of the company. Rapid means we gotta be fast and accurate.
If you want to be as efficient as you possibly can, if you want to be as profitable as you can, you absolutely should have Rapid Recon as your system.
We're a small company, but we're going to change the whole industry.
I'm really excited about how the company's growing. I see us in more dealerships worldwide.
In 5 years, you're going to see that Rapid Recon is a must for every dealership.
We're making a big difference. We're changing this industry in a way that it's needed to change for a long time.
Stop! In the name of the law! Our next speaker is ready to share the state of the automotive retail industry. Please welcome Leonard Bellavia.
Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. Len Bellavia is with us to share the state of the automotive retail industry. He is the senior partner at Bellavia Blatt PC, dealerlaw.com, a great friend of the dealer. Len, welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Ted, it's a pleasure to be here as always. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this event.
Len, you're a big voice for the dealer in our industry, a lot of things happening. And what I want to ask you about this morning. I'm wondering if we're looking far enough out. We've been talking about a lot of the things that have been taking place over the last year or two, and I'll ask you about that, including EVs. But Len, can you paint a picture of how you think the retail auto industry is going to change over the next, let's say, 5 years or so?
Well, I think, the relationship between the dealer and the factory is under a test right now. I think it's going to become more strained over the next several years. I'd say between now and 5 years from now, there's going to be efforts by manufacturers to change the franchise relationship in a way that, in my view, is not good for dealers. It's going to, usurp some of the authority that dealers have historically had. I've been, preaching to my Ford dealer clients to be more vocal. Of course, specifically with respect to the EV charging expenses that Ford wants dealers to incur, but not so much for that, as much as it is that I think manufacturers are looking at Ford dealers and saying, let's see how hard dealers push back, because that's a benchmark. It's a measurement in the view of the manufacturer. Well, we know the dealers have all these franchise laws, but if they're not going to invoke them, and I guess we have a free pass to do what we want. So I always say to dealers, of course you fight the fight where you think it's appropriate. You can't do it at every juncture, but not to fight the fight when it's really important to do so, I think sends the wrong message to manufacturers. It emboldens them. So today it's Ford's EV program. Tomorrow it's going to be direct selling or pricing, or buying cars directly through the manufacturer and then to the dealer, or trade-in value. So to leave all of this unprotested by dealers, I think is very risky. So that's why I predict that over the next 5 years, dealers are going to have a harder time, relying on the manufacturers to do the right thing.
Makes a lot of sense. Len, do you think there are things that you feel are not fully understood or are underappreciated by the industry or the dealer community right now in terms of what's happening?
Well, I think consumers and manufacturers are in the same boat. They have this dim view of dealers more so now than they did 10 or 15 years ago. These interrupters, I call them interlopers, but these interrupters come on the scene and pretend that they, or at least espouse that they have built a better mousetrap. I mean, we've seen that in the used car space with Carvana and Vroom and CarMax, right? They were supposed to be the new vogue of how to retail used cars, and we see that in one form or other, they're kind of fading to black. I mean, they're still in existence, but I think if you scrutinize their business model, even CarMax, who has historically been viewed as the more successful of the three of them, are retrenching. So what I think that manufacturers and consumers need to realize is, although there's always a better way to do things, isn't it funny how it always reverts back to the franchise dealer system? I mean, this goes back decades when manufacturers had these notions of fixed pricing with Saturn or retailing themselves. All of those models were designed to overcome problems in the dealer model. But in my view, all that needs to happen is there needs to be more interaction and communication, because dealers can actually do things better. They can rise to the occasion, please consumers. Now, I worry about with the advent of electric vehicles, there's less brand loyalty, I think, for those that are embracing, the few people that are embracing electric vehicles are less concerned about the brand. I mean, there's been studies that say that people that buy the Audis or some of the Kia, some of the new entrees into the marketplace, those aren't previous owners of that brand. So there's going to be a lot of jockeying for position. So I think over the next several years, dealers need to work really hard at maintaining brand loyalty and dealer loyalty, because that is going to be under a great deal of stress over the next several years. So there's a big misunderstanding about the role of the dealer, the capability of the dealer to meet the changing environment, consumer demands, digital selling, making it much more convenient for consumers to get vehicles serviced or delivered, new cars delivered. So there's very little that the franchise dealer can't modify. There's no need to have third-party interlopers or interrupters come on the scene. I know I wouldn't want to invest my money in most of these new ideas because I know that once dealers observe it, just like they did with Carvana and Vroom, they created their own models. And I think better to their models of these competitors. And look what's happening to them. So although there may be blips in the ability of dealers to maintain, market share at times or build a better mousetrap, ultimately they do. So my money is on the franchise dealer. The manufacturers should revisit that idea that separating the responsibility of the franchise dealer is really a bad mistake. There's so much history that they could draw upon to realize that they're better off just tweaking the system as opposed to trying to attack it. And I think consumers are going to realize that, well, it may be fashionable to do things like, buy electric cars directly from manufacturers. It's fashionable until you have to get the car repaired or you need to go to a certain place to get it charged. The bloom is off the rose, I think, on a lot of the notions that, EVs are going to take over. That's a whole separate discussion, and we can probably touch upon that. But I think that that aspect of retailing is not fully understood and appreciated. And I suspect the needle will go back onto the dealer's side, and manufacturers will appreciate the role that the dealers will play in the future. But it may be a struggle before we get, that to be normalized.
And Len, you've done a great job in speaking, not only here, but around the country. I've seen you, and reinforcing the importance of that local dealer in the community and why those dealer franchise laws were created and all that the dealer does locally. And there's no replacing that with any of these other models. And it's really back to the essential nature of that local dealer. I want to come back to the EVs that you just mentioned. A few months back in early fall, there was a big hurricane on the west coast of Florida. A lot of folks were impacted by that. There was a post by Brian Kramer on LinkedIn that had thousands of comments, and he talked about, all right, well, here we are now, post-hurricane, and people with EVs are unable to charge those vehicles. And you know what? It hit a lot of folks, including me, the common sense in that maybe the infrastructure was not quite yet in place. Len, what bottlenecks, for example, like that, do you see in hampering EV adoption over the next 5, 10, even 15 years?
Well, that is one very good example. And the other one, which doesn't rely on a hurricane, it relies on, one of the 4 seasons, and that is wintertime. Wintertime wreaks havoc on the ability of an EV to remain charged for the projected number of miles. So, 32 degrees is not a bitter cold environment, but in the wintertime, most states in the northern part of the country, 32 degrees is an average winter day. But it's been shown recently that if an EV is projected to travel 280 miles under normal circumstances, a cold temperature, I don't mean freezing, but a 32 or 35 degree day would reduce the range capability by almost 50%. So you got to tell consumers, consumers are finding out because they're reading about this. It's in a lot of publications that if you're buying a car and you're content with a 280 mile range, well, that 280 may be 180 for one full season of the year. So hurricanes are clearly a problem, but winter lasts more than, one day that a hurricane lasts. So that without even addressing the infrastructure and the raw materials needed to create batteries. So I think the underlying message is that there's a lot of, not to sound cynical, but there's a lot of snake oil being sold right now in the marketplace, whether it's startups, government wanting to meet certain mandates, manufacturers wanting to not be the ones to be the naysayers because they want to curry favor with the regulators. So when I hear someone speaking about EVs and the need to get ready, I question what their motivations are. And people that have no stake in this, I think, are the ones that I pay closer attention to. So my view personally is that we're probably 10 years out before we really have to spend a lot of resources on rejiggering, our retail model. So I know manufacturers are talking about by 2030, they want to have 70%, 65% of the vehicles sold being EVs. Just recently, manufacturing executives have changed their view. They've cut that projection in half.
Yes.
So by 2030, instead of it being 65%, they're talking about it being 30 to 35%. That's a pretty big
cut.
Margin, pretty big cut. And they're probably trying to be kind because these are also people that have a stake in the outcome. I think if you ask people that are not so jaded, you're probably going to get even more conservative estimates. So if it were my money, I would say, you know what, let's put it on the back burner. When 2030 rolls around or 2028, let's see how the public is embracing the notion of having these range problems, hurricane risks, cold temperatures. So I don't think EVs are ready for prime time. I can afford to say that because I don't have a horse in this race. I just have to advise dealers. And I get calls all the time, should I invest the $1.2 million in the infrastructure, like a Ford dealer? Or if you're a Lincoln dealer, invest over $2 million. Well, that was an easier decision last year and the year before when profits were much higher. Dealers can afford to be a little bit irresponsible. But now that things are getting back to normal and profits are being downwardly compressed, I don't know that I would part with $1.2 million or $2 million in 2023 for technology that's not going to really see the light of day until 2035. That's financially irresponsible in my opinion. And that's why I wish dealers would invoke their rights and push back against manufacturers because there's a lot of rainy day money that's needed in this industry. So to part with $1.2 million to $2 million for something that hasn't proven its stripes yet is the epitome of irresponsibility, at least, in my opinion.
Something you brought up at a recent Fixed Ops Roundtable, Len, was the importance of looking at vehicle software and who is going to get the profit on that. I understand that a lot of big decisions are being made now and in the very near future that are going to affect dealers for a long, long time. So in painting that picture of how the industry is going to change, would you address a little bit of that, the vehicle software, and ultimately how big an issue is that going to become for dealers?
Yeah, this all deals with over-the-air updates, right? Connectivity of vehicles and what happens when a vehicle needs some type of upgrading. Now, I perceive this as the biggest risk that franchise dealers face. And the reason it's a risk is because it's not easy for dealers to appreciate the significance of what is being taken away from them because it sounds innocuous. It seems reasonable to say, well, if something needs an upgrade, if they're going to change, the icon on the main screen, well, who cares? Let the manufacturer do that. But what's being planned, and the manufacturers have each said that to them, this represents a $25 billion revenue source per year.
Billion with a B.
Billion per year. Where does that $25 billion come from? It comes out of the hides of the fixed ops departments of franchise dealers. So to look away is a colossal mistake. And now I'm talking about, for example, just to illustrate the point, a vehicle might come with the capability to have heated seats, but it doesn't mean the manufacturer is going to, the customer is paying for the vehicle with heated seat capability, but subscriptions are going to be required for consumers to actually turn on the switch. So what does that mean? It means the gross profit margin on that line item on the sticker is not going to be realized by the dealer. It's going to be realized by the manufacturer. And that's just one example. I mean, you got cruise control, you've got anything related to navigation. I mean, we could go down the list and say, these are all the profit items that are going to be taken away from the franchise dealer, and the manufacturer is going to, in effect, be selling the component parts of the car after the dealer delivers a shell of a vehicle. That's a bit of an over-exaggeration, but I think it's important to illustrate that effectively that's what's happening. Dealers are going to be relegated to selling, the shell of a vehicle, and then the consumer is going to decide when they want to activate. So effectively, consumers are being charged twice because the hardware is in the vehicle. Now, we can distinguish between, an over-the-air update that's rather benign and those type of things that go to the functionality and the safety of the vehicle. that should only be performed by a franchise dealer. And a good example of that is, Tesla recently, when I say recently, within the last year or so, performed a brake upgrade to enhance the braking capability. They took 20 feet or so off the stopping distance. Now, what if that, and that was done at 3 o'clock in the morning. What if someone had to go to the hospital or deliver a baby, get their wife to the hospital at 3 o'clock in the morning while that over-the-air update grade is being performed? No one's talking about that, but that's something that should be only done at the dealership. But when that's being done en masse around the world at 3 o'clock in the morning in each territory, that's a high-risk proposition. It doesn't have, no one's reviewing the satisfactory performance of it. So that's I think a good illustration of why some things should be left to be performed at the dealer, but right now is being threatened. So dealers need to do what West Virginia did and New Jersey is doing at the current time, and that is sit down with their legislators and explain how risky this is and unsafe for consumers, how bad it is for dealers. And it is important because to the extent that the financial security of a dealership is going to be threatened, well, aside from the dealer principal, who is it going to hurt? It's going to hurt consumers, because if they don't have the integrity of the franchise system, continuity of having a local dealer, then it hurts consumers. So these are all, in West Virginia actually, was the first to legislate this. So every state needs to propose statutory protections that says that over-the-air updates that affect the functionality of the vehicle should be performed by the dealer. The dealer should be paid fair and reasonable retail compensation for performing those updates. Otherwise, dealers are going to be relegated to selling cars at reduced margins, and most of the fixed ops revenue is going to be redirected to the manufacturer. So that's the real threat here, not electric vehicles. We can put that whole discussion, in my opinion, 10 or 15 years down the road. Every dealer should be educated by their fixed ops director that this is an imminent threat. And if they don't pay attention to it, the horse will be too far out of the barn to correct it. So it's up to the dealers to speak to their state dealer association representatives, who in turn should speak to their lobbyists and get these protections on the books, because it's almost like the EV phenomenon is a distraction. So dealers aren't paying attention to these over-the-air updates. So EVs are like the decoy to keep dealers' attention away. And the facility upgrades, well, the manufacturers are plotting to take all this fixed ops revenue away from them. So it's really a clarion call to fixed ops directors and dealers to get on the phone with their dealer reps at the state associations and do what some of these other states are starting to do, which is to say to the manufacturer, this you can do over the air, and this has to stay inside the service department for the benefit of the protection of the of consumers.
We're speaking today, everyone, to Leonard Bellavia. He is the senior partner at Bellavia, Blatt, DealerLaw.com, a great friend of the dealer. Len, last question for today. You've described a lot of the fundamental changes that dealers need to be aware of. That business model is at stake, and to be successful over the next 5 to 10 years, any other advice that you want to share with our audience today?
Well, look, along the lines of all of these technology changes, let's, for the sake of discussion, say that EVs are going to start, growing. They will. I'm not saying that they're going to go away, but maybe they won't have the same degree of market share. But if I'm changing an electric battery on a vehicle that costs $8,000, I don't want to get paid a stipend, $500 flat, to change out that battery. The dealer should be getting full retail markup on parts, particularly with respect to electric vehicles, because the batteries will fail and they will need change. So I don't want to sound self-serving, because, as you know, Ted, my pet project in the late 90s was to fight to get retail reimbursement, both with respect to parts and labor under warranty. And now here it is 20-something years later, and every state in the country has a statute that entitles dealers, if they ask and if they properly request it, to obtain retail reimbursement. So this has been my cause celeb. I have a whole department in my law firm that does this for dealers. So my outreach is to say to fixed ops directors, this is the time, if you haven't done it, to do it immediately. If you've done it in the past, well, your labor rate continually goes up, and especially in this period of time where interest rates and costs are going up, cost of labor across the board, you need to resubmit for an increase in your warranty labor rate at least every 2 years. And, I maintain, this is, might sound like a sales pitch, but I verily believe this, that it's a legal procedure. You should be calling your attorney, not your ex-parts manager. You shouldn't be asking your service manager to do this. I always call that fixed ops malpractice. And the example I use when I get a dealer on the phone is I say, look, it's not illegal for me to file my own tax return, but, and as smart as I think I am, I don't know anything about the nuances of the Internal Revenue Code. So why would I not ask my accountant to file my tax return? Why? To save a few $1,000s when he's going to get me deductions that far exceed that? It's the same concept. You potentially stand to bring in hundreds of thousands of dollars a year by doing this the right way. So to give it to someone other than your lawyer is fixed ops malpractice. So don't be afraid. You shouldn't be looking to save the fee, because the cost of saving, a fee of less than, let's say, $10,000 or $8,000 is more than overcome by the increase. The increase is usually $100,000 to $300,000 for parts and labor each year. So be intelligent about it. Don't be afraid to ask for advice and get the right kind of help, because that over the next 5 years, as more and more market share goes to EVs, although it won't be substantial, it's enough where you don't want to be a dealer changing out an $8,000 battery and getting a $500 reimbursement. So think long-term, but do it now, because there's plenty of income to enjoy. And also, to the extent that manufacturers are going to downwardly compress the margins on new vehicle sales, well, fixed ops is the new front end. It's really going to be the place where dealers are going to look to supplant the gross income that is going to go by the boards if, over-the-air updates and direct selling and factory pricing is going to be the wave of the future. Then fixed ops is going to become that much more important. So if you're not getting retail parts and labor reimbursement under warranty, then you better get it soon. You're going to find out that's going to be the department that is going to be much more meaningful in the future than it ever has been in the past.
Everybody, Leonard Bellavia, the senior partner at Bellavia Blatt. He is the dealer advocate. We highly encourage our audience, as many of the Fixed Ops Roundtable dealers do, to work with Len and his firm. Easy to find at dealerlaw.com. Retail automotive runs in his blood. He knows this industry inside and out, and he goes to bat for the dealers. So Len, great to have you here and hear about the state of the industry at the beginning of 2023. Congratulations to you on all the success that you and your firm are having, and just really honored to have you here at the Roundtable.
Ted, always a pleasure. I appreciate it. Best to all of your dealers and fixed ops directors, and a healthy and happy 2023.
Everybody, Leonard Bellavia from dealerlaw.com here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
What if you could make a phone call and collect $100,000 to $150,000 a year by obtaining retail rates on both warranty parts and labor? Sound too good to be true? We do all of the work for your dealership. We are the pioneers in retail reimbursement and regarded as the industry leader amongst dealers, accountants, and state dealer associations nationwide. And we don't share in your new profits. You keep it all. Your service managers and parts managers are busy. They have a job to do. Leave it up to the experts. We offer a turnkey solution. Your manufacturer won't know you retained a law firm. Our firm has made thousands of submissions and has collected hundreds of millions of dollars for our clients in over 45 states. Because of our unmatched experience, our results yield the highest possible increases. We offer a low flat fee, never a contingency fee. Our fees are much lower than non-attorney consultants who take a percentage of your added profits. We are lawyers. This is legal work. Your state statute controls the outcome. The factories rely on their lawyers to respond. So let us level the playing field. Bottom line, thousands of dealers have selected Bellavia Blatt for their retail warranty submissions. With our low flat fee, expert reputation, and behind-the-scenes work model, we are your best choice.
If your dealership is leaking profits and you don't know why, you need more than data. You need Vision AST. Vision AST is a single solution analytics platform engineered to uncover critical information from your DMS. Using real-time data to drive profit from every department is what we do. And with Vision AST, just log in on any device and your KPIs are right at your fingertips. You can't manage what you can't measure. Take control of your dealership's profits with Vision AST.
Grab your cowboy hats and spin your spurs. It's the Fixed Ops Roundtable Wild West event.
Meet us in the town square for the Old West battle of parts and service. There ain't enough room in this town for the both of them. Or is there?
Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. It was not that long ago that parts and service seemed to have a battle nearly all the time, something out of the Old West. And Kaylee Felio is the sales and marketing manager at PartsEdge to kind of remove those barriers. Kaylee, welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about this.
I am too, and it's a great subject. You've got a superstar panel. I'm looking forward to it. And if it's okay, I'm going to step out of the way and let you get things going.
Thank you. All right. Well, I want to get everyone introduced. So just, say your name, where you're from, and your position. And we'll start with Ellen.
Hello, I'm Ellen Haney. I'm from Jeff Schmidt Auto Group in Beaver Creek, Ohio, and I am the Nissan Parts Department Manager.
I'll go next. I'm Robert Migliaccio. I am the Service Director at CMA Valley's Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Stanton, Virginia.
Hello, I'm Mike Weldon with the Hansel Auto Group. I'm the Fixed Ops Director for our dealer group.
Hello, everybody. I'm Shawn Butler. I am the Parts and Service Director in East Tennessee for Umansky Auto Group.
Awesome. Well, so it sounds like we have parts and service directors, and then we have one parts manager. So with all of you guys being parts and service, did you come up through parts or just come up through service or both? Because I always, with fixed ops directors, they tend to come up from service. I like to kind of see, where we're going to battle this conversation. Robert, did you come through parts or service or both?
So for me, I actually came up through the parts department. I started in Recon, actually, and I worked my way up through the back of the house, parts driver, shipper receiver, counterman, wholesale, system parts manager, and then after that went to service department. So it's been
I remember that. Yeah, your story is a good one. What about you, Michael?
I came up through the business. How's that?
Yeah, I know your story too. Yeah, you came up through everything. Shawn, did you come through parts and service?
I actually started out as a technician and then into service and then into parts for a little while and then back to the service side of it. So.
Great. So we've got a good mix. And Ellen, I remember your story. You started as a driver, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, this is great. So, historically, parts and service always battles. And, even in recent conversations, we hear stories of service always questioning parts and they're not confident in parts, so they don't feel like they can sell. So where can we break those barriers, and where can we find and include everyone together so that service has that confidence in parts, that they know that the parts are going to be there, or if they're not there, they're easily, we can get them. So Ellen, I'll start with you. What are some things that you guys implement to not battle?
The service manager that I work with, we're actually really, really close. We do a definite process of, we work on owning, fixing, and moving on from every single situation. So we focus mostly on communication, and then we kind of just work toward service managers. There was a quote that they are always putting out fires, and parts is always looking for smoke. So while Shonda is working closely on working out the shop, I'm watching from afar and kind of trying to make sure that there's not more issues in the background. It's mostly a very big team effort, and we focus a lot on communication.
That's huge. What about you, Robert? Do you guys have any battles? Do you have to put out any fires between parts and service?
It is that age-old test between us all, but we try to work very well here. Actually, when I joined the auto group, I think I told you, Kaylee, we pick a word for the year, and my word is synergy, which was to join all the departments within the store and have us working as one group. That's sales, service, and parts. Which we do quite well. Our parts director, myself, and the other stores, we got a couple implementation things that we do to stay in communication on parts orders and making sure things get ordered just through the electronic aspect of our DMS, and even just an email chat list that goes out every day once the parts are in, so everybody sees it and knows how to work the list and stay on top of it. So yeah, it's still there. We still have our complications every once in a while, but ultimately it's just a structure of trying to be one team with one goal and trying to get the customer in and out and taken care of.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that with parts and service, when they can communicate and work together and see that we're all working towards the same goal, but just in a different way. So yeah. What about you, Michael?
Well, I think it's to what Robert said. It's an age-old separation. I think the first thing you have to do, and he's talking about synergy, I'm talking about collaboration, and where everybody understands who benefits who, and everybody really benefits each other if we all work together. I've kind of eliminated, at least in my philosophy, parts and service departments. It's fixed ops. So regardless where you're at, what side of the table you're at, everybody's working towards the same resolve. Are we there 100%? No, but it's you're always working on these things. You're dealing with people, so there's different thoughts and different ideas. So you just continue to work on them and break them down.
Yeah, definitely. And Shawn, what about you guys? Do you guys ever battle or you have to deal with that stuff?
No, in the past, yes, ma'am. Believe I've worked at some stores where it was always like us against them or them against us, and it was a lot of friction there, right? And a lot of it emanated from the lack of communication, or, let's just be honest, simple, stupid mistakes. Not hitting the order button, not telling somebody the next day that something back ordered, or the technician not ordering the right part. That's a problem too. Sometimes they're looking in the parts catalog themselves, trying to order their own parts and send it through, and it's not the part they really needed. So that creates delays. Once you get to the point where everybody understands how they get paid, right? Technicians get paid for working on cars, and parts gets paid for putting parts on the cars. It eliminates a lot of that. And so we print out the list of every day of what's on order. I have somebody dedicated to calling the customers. There's a lot of just small processes in place. It all boils down to communication. And like Robert said, a spirit of synergy, if you will. I often say in meetings, people come into our dealership, they don't see the parts department. They don't see the service department. They don't see the sales department. They see the Honda store. They see the Chrysler Jeep Dodge store. They see the BW store. Whatever store it is, put whatever name in front of it. That's what a customer sees. They don't separate the departments, and neither should we.
Yeah. And you touched on, misdiagnosing from technicians. That was something I wanted to bring up was, what are some things that you guys have implemented to put into place to keep the peace between techs and parts for that? Because we all know that when you misdiagnose parts and you end up ordering them, it turns into obsolescence if you don't return them. So just want to get some of your guys' thoughts on just keeping the peace between techs and parts people. Ellen, I'll start with you.
So currently our dealership actually works out of 3 buildings on about an acre lot. So a lot of our communication, our catalog through our brand actually has a messaging system that you can send stuff directly to technicians. They can send pictures directly to you. It's a whole entire texting app type of thing. And that's been kind of in the works currently. We're getting ready to switch over to that. And so it's a lot of communicating between 3 buildings. We print off a lot of pictures. We talk to a lot of technicians. Parts here is actually on the move a lot, trying to just make sure that we cover all of our bases to make sure that the correct parts are getting ordered.
That's a great way to do it. What about you guys, Robert?
Yeah, so kind of similar aspect. We communicate electronically through a couple texting apps that are available that we use in the shop that parts and service are joined in, so everybody can kind of see what's going on. One of our biggest things is the way our shop is laid out. Our parts department is kind of centralized to the whole thing, so we try to get the parts guys out there in the shop with them. One of our main long-term focus goals here to kind of eliminate a lot of it is to actually employ a fixed parts supplier in the shop that actually goes and does the ordering at the bay with the technician and processes everything. So it's something we're working towards. We're working on staffing for it and whatnot, but it's our ultimate goal is to get somebody in the shop long-term that can just function with the techs, keep them working, and keep the flow going as quickly as possible. So
I think that's great. And I've heard of a few dealerships adopting that idea. And I think it's huge because most people are so visual when you're out there and the tech can actually kind of show you what they're looking at. And then looking at the catalog, you can figure it out a little bit faster. So that makes complete sense. Michael, what do you guys do?
Well, I think we've adopted, a lot of us have learned over the years, and our dealer group, we have a central parts warehouse, and then we have small parts facilities within each store. And what we've ended up doing, one, we use a communication process. We're now converted over to Teams, and that's worked out real well. We've been able to build the teams per the brand so that everybody's cross-communicating when parts are ordered or when they come in, special order parts, so that the front end, back end, wherever the employees are, they can get that communication. To Robert's point, we actually have expressed the desire to have our parts associates go out and work in the bay with the technician, making sure that the right components are being ordered, so that there isn't any delay to what Shawn was referencing on getting the parts, getting the cars fixed, especially nowadays when we have part shortages and backlogs and everything else. You can't make those mistakes where you thought you could make before.
No. And Shawn, being that you came through being a tech, you might have a different perspective because there's always a battle between techs and parts, because techs always want parts to have everything and it's not possible. So how do you guys accomplish keeping the peace?
Well, I think COVID cured everybody of parts being on the shelf in a lot of cases. So we've come to expect that we have to order things now. On the other side of that is, I actually overstock a little bit when parts are available, stuff like that. We buy them and put them on the shelf. I'm not afraid to have a little inventory. I'm not that worried about being too lean. But the pictures, the videos, carry it in there, talk with your parts person, get your parts person behind the counter to go look at the car. The parts people in our stores run the parts out to the techs. They don't have to transverse, a whole shop to come get a part, because I believe in overstaffing by one in every position. So therefore, I have somebody available to do those things. Nothing more frustrating than looking at a parts diagram and you got all these things and you go, oh, well, I thought that 50-cent gasket was included in that set. And then you find out the next day it's not, and it's holding up a $2,000 job, and it's going to be 3 days to get the 50-cent gasket. So we try to avoid those things as much as possible. But I have to give it up to our team for really working together and understanding each other's needs, because again, go back, they understand how they all get paid. And if we're not delivering cars back to customers and receiving payment, nobody's getting paid.
Exactly. I think that's the biggest thing, is making sure everyone's kind of paid on parts and service so everyone can see the same goal.
They're all tied together. Exactly.
It's all tied together. So I want to pick on parts people for a little bit, and I want to know what your guys is, because you're constantly trying to hire and look for great people. So what are some qualities you guys look for when you're hiring certain parts people? I'll go backwards. I'll start with Shawn.
For myself, I actually don't believe in going out and hiring parts people. I actually always grow from within. 3 of the 4 people I have on the back counter at the Honda store started off in detail. and then worked up to like lot porters and then to the counter. At the Acura store, much the same story. 50% of them were, cleaning cars or moving cars around on the lot, and Mazda the same way. So I'm not a big fan of going out and hunting for parts people because it's hard to untrain bad habits.
Yes. So what qualities did those people have that you saw that you thought they would be a good fit for parts?
Well, I mean, the ability to get along with others, right? Empathy and understanding of the situation. And you have to have a certain level of intelligence. Parts is not easy. There's a lot going on there. And there's a lot of processes like, we have chat functions, we have timelines. Somebody says, oh, it wasn't me. I'm going to go look. Oh, right there in the timeline, it was you. At 12:48, you said this, right? So the accountability means everything, right? If people will hold themselves accountable and go, hey, guess what? I screwed that one up. That goes a long way with me.
Yeah, that's huge. Mike, what about you? What are some qualities you look for when you're hiring parts people?
First off, you can't find them. So to Shawn's point, you try to develop them.
Yep.
And usually who you find who's out looking in today's world is they weren't fitting in the world that they were in. So therefore you're just moving worlds and you're going to end up with the same results, or that individual's not going to stick for some reason. So we find it best if we can grow our people. I mean, regardless what position. And if I do happen to find somebody, we really vet them hard to make sure that they're a good fit. And we cross interview with a number of people. So it's not one person's opinion. It's you get a lot of input, cross input, so that you can make the right choice.
I think that's huge to have multiple people in on the decision. So yeah, that makes sense. Robert, what are some qualities you look for?
For us, we, very similar to what Shawn said. We're looking for somebody who's, very empathetic and can get along with the group that's there. Obviously, a lot of what we start with when we start them out in our positions here, we're starting in the back of the house. They're starting as a shipper receiver. They're learning how to do the basic processes before they're really on a counter. Far and few between. I have to agree with everybody. It's hard to find a quality parts guy right on the counter, right off the bat that kind of comes in. So it's definitely become a grow your own situation. No different than the rest of the stores kind of become as well. Just taking in and sitting them with the right person and having the right kind of lead person in your parts department to develop them for you too. But just somebody who's trainable, somebody who really just wants to show up, work, and do the best they can every day is kind of what we need anymore.
Yeah, just show up.
more than that. But obviously, just the wanting the desire to work and knows the concepts of it. So.
Yeah, and that'll lead me to my next thing, but I want to get to Ellen. What are some good qualities that parts people have that you look for?
At our dealership, we kind of similarly have done the same thing as everyone else here. A lot of our people, we end up growing. I've hired a decent amount of lot techs. I've had a lot of people grow up from a driver. The biggest thing here is we're just looking for someone who's teachable and someone who's willing to learn. Someone who's dedicated and is just interested in something. The parts department isn't someone's main goal in their whole life to be like, hey, I want to be part of a parts department. But we're just looking for people who are interested and who are willing to follow the processes and kind of just be a part of our team.
Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, that to your point was, most people don't say like, hey, I want to go work in the parts department. But once you're there, it's almost like you fall in love with it and you stick with it for most people. So, so one of the points I was going to bring up that Robert was mentioning was, kind of motivating people and the team. So we're talking about battling the battle between parts and service, but how do we motivate people to just be more, wanting to show up and wanting to grow and do more? Is there anything that you guys are doing that I guess most people maybe not be thinking about that you're doing to motivate people? And I will start with, Ellen.
We've kind of started doing more of like an individual analysis of each individual employee and kind of setting their own personal goals and like what they're looking for at the end. It seems to be working out rather well. you take the individual time together, and I think it means a lot to a lot of these people just to know that someone's interested in where they're going and where they're going to end up. And I think that's really helping a lot of our guys here, especially, is just kind of setting individual goals and helping them meet them.
Oh, I like that. And then they can see the, the future of what the end goal is. Robert, do you guys have anything that you guys do to help motivate?
So one thing we kind of pride ourselves on here was setting career paths and career goals, similar to my own setting, and kind of showing them a path to a parts manager. Everything we focus on is trying to put them in a path to a department head and show them where they could go with the dedication, the work, the training, and paying attention. We do a large wholesale business here, so even just getting into our wholesale business and between the 5 stores we have here in Stanton, obviously always developing and having the need for the next round of people to take over those departments is something that we kind of fall into right now. So, we're trying to breed that next group of parts managers ultimately within each of the stores and really develop them for what they need. But yeah, it's very different to find somebody who's dedicated to a parts world. Once they're in there, they do enjoy it. I was very similar. I didn't think I was going to leave the parts world when I ended up going to service. But it's definitely a position that you can kind of work through and definitely just setting a career path. And I think that's the biggest thing is having it on paper for them, putting it in front of them and taking the time to really show them and develop them what they can do if they stuck it out and did the training and put forth the effort.
Yeah, that makes sense because I feel like in the past we haven't really groomed people for the role and they've just been thrown into it. And then when you take the opportunity to groom them, that's when you can, kind of get a lot of the training out of the way rather than like, here you go, you're the new parts manager. Let's kind of train you really fast. So, Michael, what about you guys? What do you guys do to motivate your team?
Well, you have team building events. You have a little competition among everybody. You compensate your staff well so that it's based on performance and it's based on how the department performs or how the group performs. So you've got everybody that's kind of collaborating together to make sure that the end result is a positive end so everybody benefits from it, including the consumer. Because I think that's where all of our paychecks come from. So if we keep everybody focused on the customer or on the guest, as I'd like to call them, I think that you're a world ahead.
Yeah, definitely. And lastly, Shawn, what about you guys? What do you do to motivate?
Well, much like the other folks, we try to give them a career path. And, we're with a growing organization. Umansky's gone from 1 dealership to 27 in like 6 years. So there's lots of opportunities available. And it's crazy to me how parts people get in there. Like you said, they love it, right? I mean, there are so many long-term parts people, and they don't move around a whole lot, the good ones. So trying to be creative. I mean, you probably all seen my cookouts that I do for everybody on a monthly basis. And we do, I try to feature people, especially from parts, recognition goes a long way because they're back there hiding in the back of the house and think nobody knows who they are. I spend time with them at each location on a weekly basis. Back there for 2 hours yesterday morning at one store and 2 hours at another one today. Totally focused on them, listening to each one of them, really engaging with them goes a long way. And then I just implemented a bonus program that will pay them out on December 15th of this year, 2023. And it's basically a match, right? We set them up as a certain amount. If they're willing to put this side amount, we're going to match that dollar amount, right? So a little bit of incentive, a little bit of retention right there. And I also tie them into the service gross. They're not just locked into the parts gross. They get a little tiny piece of so they have a little skin in the game, right? Making sure that service gets done. So that way they're more actively involved and they want to know what's going on in the shop. They're not just sitting back there playing on their phones if they're not have a tech in front of them.
That's great. Yeah. I think having them be part of service is huge to really just get them involved more. I want to touch a little bit more on like inventory for parts because that's where I think a lot of the battle comes from and the lack of confidence of service not not selling, or most importantly, even tires, really, because they're kind of afraid to go. Historically, I'm not saying your guys's, but like they're afraid to go to parts to see if they're in stock, or there's just no process in place. So what have you guys implemented to give your service people the confidence to talk to parts and to sell more because they have confidence in their parts departments? I'll start with you, Ellen.
So every single time we have any recalls, any customers looking to order parts, anything like that, we automatically get a notification from our BDC. So we're able to pre-order a lot of parts. And every single month we go over like our top 25 best sellers of things, and we kind of bulk up on them. There's obviously certain brakes and stuff that we sell all the time. Nissan has a line that covers a lot of products with like one part number. So we just do a lot of focus on that. We commonly also know what our guys are selling on a day-to-day basis, and we kind of hone in on that. We look at our next day schedule, and we kind of work with that as well and go through the list of what they're scheduled for the day before. And then we pre-order a lot of things that we know the technician is either going to need, or something that we know is maintenance. And if we don't have it, we're just always constantly checking our schedule to make sure that we have everything that we would potentially need for those cars coming in the next day.
I love that. What about you guys, Robert?
Obviously, you know that the elephant in the room of everything that's been going on the last couple of years is supply chain issues, and just the availability of parts have been challenging, to say the least here. So, you know, everything that we look for, we just try to utilize the local dealers as well as local vendors, and making sure that every estimate that comes through, if we don't stock the part, we're finding the best source for it, trying to get the job done and completed as quickly as possible. If it has to go on back order, then, you know, we know we've exhausted every option available before we put that customer down. And then putting the pressure back on our factory reps when it comes down to that situation, and getting them involved and getting them in to handle what we need, and trying to pull these parts and getting them here. Because ultimately, like I said, we're all dealing with it. Doesn't matter what brand you're with. Everybody's dealing with in some way, shape, or form. So it's just a matter of how you do, what you make the best of with, and really just trying to source parts and making sure you take the time to not just look and see it's not at the warehouse and call it quits, and take that extra step to check local dealers, call the local dealers, look at the independents, and, you know, make the recommendation to the customer if they want to go that route to come off brand and go that route also. So it's really just the all hands on deck kind of situation to try to make the best of what we got and get the vehicles in and out quickly for them.
Yeah, definitely. And motivating your team to exhaust all of those avenues, rather than, because I hear a lot where they're like, they didn't really try that hard, you know, but that's the thing where you have to, parts people can almost be like they're going on a scavenger hunt for parts sometimes, and it's exhausting and disappointing when you can't figure it out. So Michael, what about you guys? What are some things that you've done for that?
Well, it's very similar. You just don't stop at the catalog. You have to get out and resource. You've got a guest that you've got to take care of, and you need to make sure that guest understands that you have their interests at heart. So you go to the end of the world to be able to provide that service to that customer. And a lot of times it's tough. We're waiting on a part to show up from eBay. It's the only place I can find it, and it's coming from England, of all places. So we'll do anything and everything that we can just to service and be able to provide that opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And Shawn, what are some things that you guys do?
Well, you know, when you going back to your original question of what do we do to make the technicians competent, we stock tires, right? So I'm constantly on them. You can't sell what you don't have. So therefore, we have really probably doubled or even tripled our inventory of tires, because I don't really care about making $1 on a tire. It's about the ancillary sales that come with it, longevity, right? You get the brake pads, you get the filters, you get an alternator, a radiator down the road, because you're keeping them from going somewhere else. You know, so those things are huge to me. Brake pads, if we know that we were coming up short, we couldn't get something right, we constantly write those things down, and we're checking them when they're available. We'll order a half dozen of them. Same thing with an alternator. Same thing with the radio. I don't care. We'll stock it. Because Honda and Acura and Mazda, they're all pretty generous, right? As long as you keep an eye on your obsolescence. As you remember, when we reviewed, our obsolescence was like under 3% of our inventory. So therefore, my parts managers are super in tune, and I got to give it up to them. Kudos for the job that they do and keeping up with those things. But one thing that did really tick me off when I first got with this group and these stores in this area was it's back ordered. That's like a technician going, well, waiter going to wait, No, pick up the phone, call the other guy, look on carpart.com, look on eBay, look on whatever it takes to get that part. And if you know something's back ordered, find another source and buy 50 of them. 50 of them cabin filters that we can't get for 2 months. 25 of them batteries that they're telling us we can't get they don't even have an ETA on it. Find somebody else to get them and put them on the shelf. We're going to have parts for the customer.
Exactly. Get them for the customer. And so we brought up obsolescence a couple of times, and it's kind of one of those things where if you're not focused on it and you're not controlling what I always say, the domino effect of obsolescence, then it's going to grow and get out of control. And it's just amazing how many dealerships it's out of control, and then there's back order problems, right? And you can't get the parts, but then you have all this obsolescence, wasted inventory. Is there anything that you guys do creatively to keep a pulse on your obsolescence? I'll start with you, Ellen.
So I actually have a member of the parts department, and she actually maintains the majority of the inventory here. We do bin checks, special order checks, warranty purge, cores at least once a week, if not more. So we're always constantly checking and being on top of things. That is her primary job, is to focus on the inventory and make sure that everything is where it says it is, and we make sure that we always have what it says we have, just to make sure we always are on top of obsolescence, parts, making sure we're not missing something, nothing's going to give us a struggle at the end of the day, because those are the things that really end up messing you up with the technicians. It says you've had one for 3 months, it disappeared, gone. So we always are making sure that we're checking that and making sure that we have exactly what we have. And we run the obsolescence report at right before the return is due, and we'll get rid of a lot of the old obsolescence.
Yeah. And I love how you've delegated that to someone to help you stay control of it. And so I think that's important. Robert, what about you guys? What do you guys do for obsolescence?
So our parts director here probably does a phenomenal job. Obviously, like I said, we do a large amount of wholesale where we're at. So we're dealing with a lot of body, a lot of plastic, a lot of things that can become issues and concerning. And, the biggest thing is very similar in the shop with fixed right first time is, exactly what we've been talking about is picking the part right the first time as well, making sure we're doing and identifying the right part right off the bat. So we're not sitting on parts that we can't return. Ultimately, really kind of the big aspect is playing the game with the manufacturer and making sure we're hitting any and every incentive that we need to acquire as much return dollars as possible to keep ourselves running and getting the parts that we need to return back and not sitting on them. And ultimately, at the end of the month, our variances are pretty spot on, pretty good. So just kudos to the team here and doing a good job. It's really just it is managing it, and everybody's got to be a part of it. It can't just be one person. It has to be a team effort back there. The advisors, the pickers, the shipper receiver, your manager, everybody has to work together.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know some things that we talk about with our clients is getting the service and technicians involved so that they understand the obsolescence and the impact of it. Because if you have a bunch of obsolescence, you can't have more of the right parts. So if they're all working together. Michael, what about you?
Well, you're tiring up, biggest part of the dealer's money is tied up in inventory. So you got to make good use of it. It's an investment. So you got to turn that. And everybody is responsible for it. If you order parts wrong, the service department, we chat with them, and if we're stocking way too many or we're not moving the parts, we look at turns, 6 months, 12 months, 9 months, and we keep that inventory turning because it's, like I say, it's capital, and we want to make sure that we have good product in place.
Definitely. And then lastly, Shawn, what do you guys do to keep obsolescence? Because I know your guys' team does an awesome job with it.
Yeah, so those guys are proud to tell me when I ask them, I say, hey, what's our inventory? What dollar do we have in the inventory? Is our obsolescence under 3% of that? And what's our fill rate? They can spit those numbers out to me every Monday morning without me asking. You know, it only takes a few times I ask until they know what I'm looking for. And they do just an incredible job. My hat is off to them for the job that they do. I have zero complaints, and my guys are great.
Good.
Love it. Great panel, great leaders, Kaylee. I've been taking a lot of notes, and it all comes back to something I heard at the beginning of the panel: communication and synergy. And congratulations to all of you. Great job, everybody. I want to thank Kaylee from PartsEdge, of course, for putting the panel together. Ellen, wonderful to have you on the roundtable. Great information. I took a lot of notes, especially on this information you shared. So we look forward to having you back again and again.
Absolutely.
Love it. Mike Weldon, wow, great stuff. So it's amazing, Mike, how much information that keeps coming out and seems to have no end. So
you gotta learn every day.
Great stuff. And Shawn Butler, thank you so much. And Robert Miggs from Carter Myers, great information. Thank you so much. Learned a lot from this panel, Kaylee.
Kaylee.
So, Kaylee, it sounds like that old West battle is fading.
It is.
But,
That's a good thing.
A lot of good best practices here. So
Yeah, it was great. Thank you guys for joining.
Kaylee, if our audience wants to learn more about PartsEdge, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can go to our website or they can reach out to me. I'm active on LinkedIn. But yeah, definitely reach out.
PartsEdge.com. Kaylee's email is scrolling in the bottom below the panel. So want to thank Kaylee and the panel. Kaylee Felio, everybody, and the Old West Battle of Parts and Service panel here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Obsessed with creating the perfect inventory? Us too. PartsEdge gives you the tools you need to outpace the competition and provide the highest level of service to your customers. PartsEdge is a powerful tool for parts managers to get the job done faster. Imagine what it was like when the impact wrench arrived. It made mechanics 3 times faster. Getting the job done without the latest technology makes it difficult to keep up. Besides all the other responsibilities you have, you work hard to have all the right parts you need when you need them. PartsEdge was designed by parts people for parts people to make that job a lot easier. PartsEdge saves you 4 to 6 hours every week and can increase your sales by 10 to 20% in just 12 months. Not bad for your bottom line. Take your obsession to perfection with PartsEdge. Call us today to find out what PartsEdge can do for you.
We've got BDC's Most Wanted moseying on into our event. It's John Traver from Traver Connect.
Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. John Traver is with us today. He is one of the great names, and his company is one of the great brands in the automotive retail industry. John Traver, welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Ted, you should say that a couple times. Welcome back, welcome back. 19 Fixed Ops Roundtables We all salute you. Thanks for leading this so well. And we're excited to be back, my friend. Thank you.
John, you play personally a big role in the roundtable, and I got to thank you because so many of our attendees, dealers, managers rely on Traver Connect and all you do for them in the industry. You're on the cutting edge with technology, so thank you for all you do. The phones have been a huge topic, especially the last 6 months, and now here early in 2023. So I'm excited what you have to share with us today at the Wild West.
Hey, it is wild, and you're right. The more things change, some things still stay the same. So the phones. Ted, the Wild West is indeed wild. 23 is, there's some unknowns, right? You and I have talked about this, offline, online phone calls, and now here in the roundtable. And audience, as you listen and are mapping your way into 23, certainly you're thinking the same thing. We call them the known unknowns. I think Frank calls it that on Blue Bloods, right? The known unknowns. So there's some of those interest rates and all kinds of things going on. So how do we approach that? Well, I always start with history before I go forward because I think history teaches us. Ted, you and I grew up in a generation, Robert Conrad. When I think Wild West, I think wild, Wild West. I don't have my cowboy hat on me today. It's at the ranch, but hey, listen, we are all sort of riding and blazing a trail west as we get rolling. So to me, as you look back, maybe not quite as far back as the 60s and the wild, Wild West, let's look back into 22 real quick. About a month ago, the year closed out. And of course, one of the top stories you're going to see in automotive news is the story of Cavanaugh, right? I remember when this article on the Dallas car buyers get their very own quirky car vending machine. That was 2017. If you can see it on my slide, you'll see it's datelined 2017. That stock, went up. And of course, it's gone down. It's one of the top 10 stories of the year. It's a $4 or $5 stock today. I'm not going to talk about that. What I want to talk about around business development, which is our passion here at Traver Connect, is 3 things that can allow you to focus as you go into 23 and maximize your opportunities this year. These are things you control. Stuff like this, you don't always control, right? It's out of your control. And so we want to control the controllables, the known knowns. But it's not just Carvana, everyone. I mean, here's Uber. I mean, this is a business that fascinates me. As of Q3, Ted, they were at 23 billion in revenue, and they were upside down by almost $10 billion. So how do you do 23? Wow. They're going to run over 30 billion for the full year.
John, built with a B.
With a B, Ted. That's with a B. Now, I will give you an asterisk if you really want to dive into this. The year prior through Q3, I think they had lost like $1.4 billion, somewhere around there. So there was a write-down that took place during the course of 22 that added to that. But my point is, it's not like this is a startup. These guys have been around and they're still, they're still having to print money to pay the bills, you see? So why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up because our audience, our fellow dealers, our vendor partners, they're doing battle in a space where cash flow is really important. So as I said, Larry reaches out and he asks a handful of questions. He says, John, tell me this. He says, what was really important in the old normal? So this isn't just pre-COVID, but the things that followed COVID, right? The old normal. And now it's still really important. What was important then, but really isn't as important? Like for Traver, you can guess it's facilities. We have this massive facility here, and it's incredible. It's a really nice place that we've built out together. But a lot of our staff is working abroad, coast to coast. And so that's an example. Some of you can relate to this. So what was sort of important, but now has become more important? What was sort of important, but isn't as important? And then what was low then, but is important now? And I just thought this was awesome. So I told him, I said, okay, I'm going to answer these questions for you. Give me a little bit. He goes, John, don't go deep. He goes, gut level. So, okay. So I thought about it, Ted, and, I came back to him and I answered. And I said, hey, the only caveat is I want to know what everybody else is saying. He's got 120 CEOs from around the globe. And he said, look, this is what's really a priority in the new normal, explaining what's important for me, achieving clarity in goals and communications, finding more and better collaboration technology, prioritizing culture, leadership over bossing, reinventing, driving greater trust and transparency, focusing on logistics, environmental, social governance, decentralizing decisions that gain more action. Less important, surprising, incentive plans, strategy, conferences, rules, facilities, speed, process manuals. Very, very enlightening. I know it makes you smile because, I mean, you can kind of see where you fall, right? And so to me, this is so powerful for everybody as we think about going into 23. Where do I fit? Where am I at on the water as I navigate my way across the sea, as we try and, again, make another step up with each of our organizations. So here's my summary message. This is what I want to share with you today. It's not always the big that eat the small. I've already showed you Uber. I showed you Carvana, right? It's looking more like the wise, Ted, that outdistance the hasty. This is a marathon, man. This is a marathon. And so, I love Charlie Munger. I just do. He's a little stodgy. He's a little stiff, but I always know he's going to shoot me straight. And he says this, he says, acknowledging what you don't know is the dawning of wisdom. Like, I love that. So it's really a question as you go into this year, like, what don't we know? Okay, these are the things that are the unknowns. So I want to give you 3 in today's message that are in your control all year. If you're ready, saddle up, Ted, in our wild, wild west. Let's do this. Number 1 is this. I wrote these, Ted, 30 years ago. These were 10 principles for business development, yes, at Traver Technologies. And I'm pulling them out of the bag and sharing them with the team today. And I'm going to apply it to today because these are timeless. Number 1 is this. A little plus a little plus a little equals, Ted?
A lot.
A lot. So where are those little areas that will make a big difference? I'm going to unpack about 5 of them for you today. Okay. Number 2, greater is he or she that can get 10 people to do their job than he or she that does a job of 10.
Yes.
You remember the old, you're the man? Oh, let me handle that. Let me go desk that deal. Let me take the turn. I'll handle it. The problem with that is you're it. And eventually you're a dead man or a dead woman. The idea is to duplicate yourself. The third is good training will overcome bad instincts. Nice. And I'm going to take you somewhere that you'll never, ever forget today and show you that training is a path that will make a difference. So those are the big 3. Ted, can I press on? Are we okay?
Sir.
All right. So, the first one is a little plus a little plus a little equals a lot. So what are they? I told you I'd give you 5. The first one is this. It's you want to raise the bar on CX. So if I'm sitting with you in the store, these are the questions we're going to ask each other. If we're partners, I think I'm going to start with this question. Ed Roberts, bless your heart. I'm going to ask this. Are we providing mobile service? Yes or no? Not, well, no, real simple. Yes or no? And are we providing pickup or delivery? Okay. So those are 2 areas where CX, where you can change the bar. And you say, John, do I have to do all these? You don't have to do anything. You got to be born, you got to breathe, the rest you made up, right? So, you get to do this. You get to do this. What do our reviews online say about our experience? Don't tell me what your CSI scores are. Go online, because what they don't say will tell you what you're not doing. That's the opportunity. Make sense? 2 is squeeze the lemon, right? Squeeze the lemon, maximize every RO. Tully, when you're talking about selling hours, God bless America, you're nailing it. Here it is. Underselling. We have enough business. It's in the lane. It's already there. Identify and sell maintenance. Okay, any other tips? I would say, yeah, use the tools available. The video, the texting. So it's not just short message service, but it's multimedia service, MMS, which is video coming through their text. We have the tools. So when you hear folks talking about it, you see where it fits. This is the second area that's a little bit better this year, starts to add up. 3 is own. Emphasize the word own those UIOs. What's a UIO for those that don't know? Units in
operation.
You wrote the check. First thing I would say is this. Anytime I'm talking to any of our stores, I'll always say this. Hey, retention's a verb. It's a verb. It's not a state. It's a verb. It's an action. Okay. So you already wrote the check. Show me the process. Show me the program. Every year here, we rewrite our retention programs for our dealers. Like whatever we're doing last year, we've already raised the bar. Whatever we finish with this year, we'll raise the bar. because there's so much room to conquest more of what's already been paid for. Winning in owner retention is the name of the game. Number 4 area, a little plus little wins. Conquest every recall. So what I'm saying is, if you have a UIO that comes through your drive that you didn't sell, you've never serviced, that's a conquest. Ted, agreed?
Mm-hmm.
Yes? Okay.
Yep.
How much did you pay to get him in the lane?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. So let me ask you, were they just visitors, or are they now part of the Ings family?
Yeah, sure.
What have you done last month? How many came through? What was the average RO? And what was the initiative your store took to own those folks? Conquest every recall. 5, you hear me say it often, catch the calls. I only got to say 2 words, the phones. And everybody knows what we're talking about. Right? We all kind of look in our like,
we know. Yep.
So it's, hey, we're still 1 out of 5 we miss. We abandon. What does abandon mean? It means they sit on hold so long, or they get transferred to so many departments that wasn't really where they were trying to get to. And all they're trying to do is, hey, would you take my money? Yeah. Would you open a new RO?
Please.
Pretty please. Yeah. So 5 areas, Ted, a little plus a little. Would you agree these 5 make a meaningful difference in 23?
Absolutely. 100%, John. In fact, I think you're low with the 18%, as you know, but we'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
my whole thing always is I'm not trying to punch anybody in the mouth. All I'm trying to do is just get them to nod to the point where they can begin to help themselves. And it is low. And what I would say is all of these are in their control. Look, partners out there, these are all in your control. So that's 1. I said there were 3. Number 2 is this: greater is he who can get 10 people to do their job, and he who does a job of 10. There's 3 things I want to say. 1 is great organizations have people who are inspired by their leadership. They're inspired. The second thing is they have people that are driven by their own desires to win and excel. So like, I can't put that in you, Ted. You either have that or you don't. Right. But you're counting on me. Somebody once said to me, Jay Abraham, years ago, he said 90% of the population is silently begging to be led. 90% is silently begging. That's the leadership piece. So you need those 2. Ed Roberts, I know you're doing that down there in Florida. I know you are. And there are others out there that are doing this. Shawn Kingery, I know you're doing that in Wisconsin. So effective leaders. The second thing is, they help the team identify the gaps. Okay, Ted. So I got the vision, what you want to accomplish, your numbers for this year. So where are you versus where you want to be? And then now you and I can start dialoguing on closing those gaps. What does that look like? Daily, weekly, monthly? It's the old, a single journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Yep. The third thing is this, is every teammate knows their value and their role. I met Willie Davis, who passed away a couple of years ago, Hall of Famer, Green Bay Packer legend. And he told a story. We were in a business camp in Green Bay. I went to a few of these, and it was just, I was out of my mind. I grew up in Wisconsin, so forgive me. I bleed a little cheese, okay? But he tells this story about a guy named Kenny Beck. And I'm like, who's Kenny Beck? And he says to everybody, he said, look, he's the 43rd man on the team. This is before they had 53-man rosters. And so I was, okay, God, that's why I can't remember. He only played 2 years. He had an injury. He was a 3rd or 4th round pick of the Packers. What's interesting about Kenny Beck is he played for 2 of the greatest leaders ever in football. When I say the name Bear Bryant, everybody knows who I'm talking about. And when I say the name Vince Lombardi, he played for both. There's only 2 guys in the history of time that played for both of those coaches. Yeah. So you would say, well, gosh, then he knows everything that he needs to know. Listen, Willie took him under his wing in training camp, and he spent time with him knowing he was a 43rd man. Willie was a starting defensive end. We had Henry Jordan on the other end, and those in the 60s, both Hall of Famers, but he spent time with them. And this is what Ken Beck said. He said, nobody ever told me my job was that important until Willie Davis did. So tip 2, duplicating yourself, growing the people around you. These 3 principles will guide you. So that's tip 2. Tip 3 is this: good training will overcome bad instincts. So on the left, I want you to look on the screen here. March 30th, 1989. Ted, you remember this, right?
I remember this day, yeah.
Okay, so the first video on the left, you can find this online, but I love using this story to teach. When the first shots rang out, the assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan, you saw instinct. What do you see there, Ted? You see the cop flinching. You see the next guy everybody's flinching. Is that training or instinct? My friend, that is instinct. Nobody says, hey, now listen, if you're ever around gunfire and you hear it fire, make sure that you hunch quickly. And no, it's in us. That's instinct. And it was a good instinct in that moment.
Yes.
But I want you to look to the right. You see on the left, you see the guy whose elbow is kind of cocked like that? Well, that's the guy on the right that now looks like a shield, Ted. That's Tim McCarthy, who did 40 years in law enforcement. And after he took a bullet, Ted, you know what he said? I did the job I was trained to do.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. How many of you guys are struggling training service advisors? How many of you guys are having a hard time training CX? How many? I have one more question for you. He said, I did the job I was what, Ted? I was
trained to do.
So that means there's a bullet taking 101 course, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you imagine you and me checking in our first day?
Wow.
Hey,
yeah.
Traver and Ings here for bullet taking 101. Yeah. Are those blanks now that they're going to fire, or are those real whistlers? Hey, I have a question. Here's the question. If these guys can learn how to take a bullet, do you think we, with all of our experience, with our leadership, do you think it's possible that we might be able to teach our teammates what CX looks like? Do you think it's possible we might teach them what writing and squeezing the lemon in an RO looks like? Is it possible to maximize these UIOs? I think it is. I used to believe that, happiness was a state. And then I think I just kind of expanded that thinking, Ted, at one point. And I said, you know what? All unhappiness is caused by comparison. When you get frustrated, gang, and you're in the lane and you're teaching your staff and it's not happening, I need you to come back to this principle. I need you to remember moments like this, courses like this. What you and I do is meaningful work. It is a good endeavor. Stay at it. And if you need help, you reach out and you get help on the sidelines from folks that, can do that. But good training will overcome instinct. So a measurable 2023, my friend, a little plus a little plus a little equals a lot. Greater is he can get those 10 people to do their job than the one who's doing the job of 10. And good training always overcomes instinct. As always, my friend, we catch the calls, we load the shop, we change the world. We simplify. That's the beginning, the mouth of the funnel. That's where it all happens. And we're here to help in any way we can. Sometimes that's listening. Sometimes it's doing, serving. We're excited about 23, and those watching should be too.
John, this is the perfect time of year to take advantage of everything you're discussing and to reach out to Traver Connect, right, for more information. John, you've got the wisdom and the tools, and John, it makes so much sense. And you catch those calls, John. We've heard that over and over, but you know what? We all know that that's one of the big areas, okay, that we can improve. And you're exactly right. Yeah, love it.
You bet. Always a pleasure. Hey, so number 19, let's have an incredible show this week. NADA here in Dallas. I put some stuff out there for folks that are in town, some recommendations for restaurants and so forth. And I hope you guys have a super productive NADA show and look forward to 2023 together. And Ted, we look forward to Fixed Ops Roundtable number 20.
Coming up, in just a few months. Yeah. In the meantime, John, thank you for helping us kick off this event, number 19, the Wild West. We are very indebted to you. John Traver, everybody, the CEO of Traver Connect. Great resource. Reach out to John. Great friend of the Fixed Ops community and the Roundtable. John, thank you for all you do.
It's our pleasure, Ted. Thank you.
John Traver, everybody, from Traver Connect, here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Hi, John Traver here at Traver Connect. Thanks for joining us on our Service BDC video today.
If you've already partnered with us, we appreciate your partnership over these past years. If you're new to us, we look forward to getting to hear your story and come alongside you relative to service BDCs. When you hear the term service BDC, the first word for me that comes to mind is calls. That's what really a service BDC is going to be built around, both inbound and outbound calls. Those calls are going to load your shop, it's going to drive your RO count, and ultimately, it's going to tee up your next retail unit. One reason the service BDC is so successful today, so important today, is it has a massive amount of opportunity in the form of those incoming calls. The cell phone changed everything. It's increased the amount of calls to dealerships, and as a result, we have to have a team of people centralized to take those calls. It's always been busy in service, but today when you ask dealers, they tell you they need help.
With only 3 service writers, it's virtually impossible for my service writers to load the shop effectively and efficiently in order to keep my shop full.
The second thing I'd be thinking about if I were you is, what do my calls sound like? What is our statement of work in those calls? Are we asking for email, address, phone number? Do we use a time and mileage approach to make sure we're pre-selling to any additional needs, or are we just order taking and then trying to take care of the customer when they get there and tell them we need their car all day? So what you want to do is establish a clear roadmap for how your calls are going to be handled. We'll help you do that, whether it's virtually here through our BDC or we do it with your team at your dealership. So perhaps you're like some dealers, when they hear us talk about centralizing the calls here in Dallas, Texas, they wonder what that call might sound like.
One thing I like about Traver is that my customers feel as though they're dealing with someone within my own store. I've had several customers come to my store and ask to speak to Chelsea when my people that realize Chelsea doesn't work there, she actually works in the call center in Dallas.
I have you scheduled for the recall. Was there anything else?
Let me tell you, you're like the most professional person I've ever spoken to, I think.
My pleasure.
Good job.
Thank you.
No, I'm serious. I'm being completely serious. No, we don't need anything else. That was great.
You have a wonderful day.
Okay, you're doing a great job. You sound good on the phone. So
Oh,
when I see Herb, I'll tell him he's a great person on the phone.
We're built for service BDCs, 60,000 square feet of workstations and personnel trained to take inbound calls. There's a handful of ways we can help you. We can help you with a virtual service BDC where we take your calls. We can help you with outbound campaigns, filling in those open spots in your schedule, turnkey, not just getting the customer to call, but actually taking the call and loading it in your scheduler. 3, training for your business development manager, for your business development rep. How do they take these calls? We'll bring them into our customer experience center if they're a BDM, or we'll provide online training for those BDRs. Leadership education for you. You're wondering, what are my KPIs? What should my staffing plan be? We can walk you through this in less than a day. And then tools, everything from texting, mobile payments, even in-dealership software to help your BDRs. So hopefully you see we're built for service BDCs. This is what we do, not what we talk about, and we hope to be talking to you soon.
Here to tell us all about leading radical change are Mike Cavanaugh, Brian Kramer, Ed Roberts, Fred Fordin, and Steve Woessner.
Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. This panel is about leading radical change in automotive retail, and with us today are the leaders. I'd like to introduce them to the roundtable today, beginning with Mike Cavanaugh from Lithia and Driveway, Brian Kramer from Cars.com and AccuTrade, Ed Roberts from Bozard Ford Lincoln, Fred Fordin, who is the creator of Dealer ASR, and Steve Woessner from Blue Oceans Global Consulting. Everybody, welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable, and thank you so much for being with us today. I'd like to start our questions off today. Mike, coming to you first. What does radical change in the retail auto industry look like to you over the next 5, even 10 years?
That's a great question, Ted. So I would say radical change to me, first and foremost, means, really serving our customers wherever, whenever, and however they desire. I think, that means new cars, used cars, purchasing vehicles. Brian, and what you're doing over there is amazing when it comes to purchasing vehicles from customers, service, removing friction. Ed on the phone as well here too. Amazing industry leader with what that means, I think, to folks. So when it comes to radical change, I think first and foremost, it's serving customers wherever, whenever, however. And at the most simplistic level, I worked for a gentleman for a number of years. He was a self-made billionaire in the automotive industry, right? And he had one saying, and it was, you can't sell anything by saying no. And I think we have to remind ourselves of the simplicity of this. We're in this world where we're all about technology and innovation and all these things. At the most simplistic level, radical change means we have to stop all of the saying no, right? We have to figure out a way to say yes. So it's not, can we do this? It's how might we do this? How can we do this? How can we better serve our customers? So I think radical change at a simple level means that. And it really means getting back to the basics. I think we're in a period of time, coming out of 2021 and 2022, where we probably have some of the worst salespeople and the laziest managers we've ever had in the automotive industry, right? So if we want to lead radical change, we have to confront, the brutal facts and the hard truths right now in our industry that, we got fat and happy and we got lazy, and we need to change that, right? So it's not just about technology and innovation, but it's about getting back to the basics. And I would say, we have to really focus on what got us here won't get us there, right? And remind ourselves of that. What made us really successful last year and the year before would probably lead to failure in 2023. So if we want to have radical change, we have to be ready to work really, really hard to just get back to where we were in 2022. So I would say that's probably what I would start off with.
Brian, your thoughts on leading radical change in automotive retail?
Well, I think Mike touched on quite a few of them. What got you here won't get you there. I've read that book, and it was a journey I had to go on, because the way I used to do things, and I've had to go through that cycle multiple times. And I think that, as Mike's saying, it all comes back to the consumer and enhancing that experience. And I think that we're going to have to address the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is with existing dealership leadership is the loss of control in what they perceive as control currently, and enabling and empowering others. And by giving away control, you'll actually gain control. But there's such a loss aversion, and people focus on what is being taken away. And it's been happening since the 90s when I got into this business. Oh, well, they're going to price vehicles online, and now they're going to allow people to just, price tires online. Well, Tire Rack's already doing that. And you've got to be competitive with whatever the market is doing. And you've got to go on offense instead of playing defense. And I think that in many cases, especially over the next 5 years, getting past the thought of, oh, am I going to get replaced by a robot? And look at what you may be losing and focus on what you're going to be gaining. The other thing that I would say is that you have to, over the next 5 years, the siloed command and control leadership style that we all, came up under is going to have to be decentralized, and you're going to have to involve others in the decision. It's going to have to be more collaborative, and it's not a one-man band, and it's not a one-man show. I mean, when I was at Germain in my former life, we had a skunk works team, and we were constantly, it was an innovation team, and most of the best ideas didn't come from me. They came from everybody in that room by stress testing everything. So I think it's a journey. And, Alex Vetter says all the time, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So I would leave it at that.
Wow. Powerful stuff. Ed Roberts, you're on the front lines at Bozard Ford Lincoln, a leader in innovation, and talk to us about radical change.
Is thinking outside the box, and really it's not even thinking outside the box. It's shifting the mindset from I've always done it that way, and it's meeting customers on their terms. And we still, in the automobile industry across the board, force customers to come back and do business on our terms. And over the next 10 years, we have to embrace, we can fight it all we want, but we have to embrace click to buy. We have to embrace all those things. Our fancy showroom is not what's going to draw people in 10 years from now. If we're not showing up in people's driveways, we're missing the boat. And that's not just on the sales side, it's on the service side as well. EV is forcing the industry to shift to go take care of these vehicles out in field. And if we don't do that, then yes, we're ahead of the aftermarket right now. They can't service a lot of EVs, but they will find ways to do it. and they will find ways to do it by hiring the people that you have to go do it with. So we got to embrace ways to find ways to meet customers on their terms rather than ours. That's what's made Amazon what they are today. And that's what we have to shift to. It's convenient. They can do it anytime. And it doesn't take anything away from them. They don't have to spend time in traffic going back and forth or whatever else. They don't have to spend time in our showroom and then waiting to get terrorized in the F&I office. We have to find ways to meet them on their terms, and click to buy is what we have to embrace going forward.
Let me do a follow-up question, if I can, with Mike Cavanaugh. Mike, on some of the comments that we're hearing from Brian, yourself, and Ed, how will fixed operations, in your opinion, play into that radical change? Will that be a big part of it over the next 5 to 10 years? A lot of forces, a lot of things changing here in 2023.
Massive part of it. I think the fixed op part of a dealership is probably the least appreciated part of the dealership. It's kind of the engine of the car, right? You know, if you think about a car in general and how beautiful the exterior of the car is and how beautiful the interior of the car is, right? That's like the dealership itself. That's the sales team. That's F&I. That's all the people with the fancy clothes on and the Ferragamos and the Rolexes, right? But the engine and the transmission of the car is the service department, right? That's what really keeps the car running. That's what actually the function of the car itself is. And that's really what drives the business for the dealership. And I think we've talked so much about, digital retailing and selling cars online and buying cars and all of these things, but servicing customers, right? That's what keeps customers. That's what makes people excited about being loyal to a brand. And I mean, that's why I really love to listen to Ed whenever he has something to say, because he's an innovator in that space, right? And he has that fixed ops background. I think that is probably, we've talked about that 10 to 20% when we've talked about retailing and selling cars, 80 to 90%. So I think that's where we really can make some huge strides this year is how do we create an excellent customer experience with fixed ops versus just variable and have the focus there.
Great point. Steve Woessner, in a former life, when you worked at an OEM, I know you called on Ed's dealership, and you've told me about all the opportunities that you pointed out many, many years ago at that St. Augustine operation. Steve, talk to us a little bit about leading radical change, because I know that's a near and dear to your heart.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting because I called on Fred Bozard way back in the day when it was a small little store that honestly, it took you forever to find it. And you showed up and Fred was there and he had his plans for what he was going to do in the future. And I was telling Ed this, after 7 years of talking with him about it, they were yellow and he was still showing them to us at the factory. Yep, this is what I'm going to do. This is the plan. And every year we included it in the business plan and every year it didn't materialize. And then I remember after I had left Florida and then I came back, I drove up 95 and all of a sudden, boom, wow, this thing has now materialized. It was amazing to see the change. But I do think that when you talk about the change in the business, it's really a lot more than the physical change of facilities and those kind of things. And I do agree with Mike and Brian, it's more than technology, okay? In many ways, it is how you go about doing the day-to-day things. And I think these things are going to start to change and evolve. People are going to work better with technology, not get replaced by it. People are going to get enhanced in their abilities. You're also going to see, I think, a lot more backup positions in dealerships where people can do multiple jobs. Because as I used to call it, the position of one. There's one guy that does this. When he's not there, nobody does it. Okay, I think in the future, those things are going to change. And you're going to also see a significant shift, I think, in dealerships doing more strategic business planning. Because I think that's a muscle they haven't exercised in the past because they've been really good firefighters and they've done a good job of making little adjustments and doing those sorts of things. I think in the future, the speed of change and the magnitude of change and the multiple things happening at the same time are really going to force you to do what Brian talked about, which is to have a stuntworks team that you can run these things through. Because for one person to try and do it all themselves is going to be really, really difficult. So I think those are going to be the major changes, but it's going to be very exciting to watch. I can tell you that.
Steve, great points. And Fred, I like what Steve mentioned there in terms of the speed of change. That is a very relevant term. Fred, your thoughts? You worked with a lot of retailers, and what are your observations on radical change?
Yeah, so this is really a great question when you look at the industry, and both Mike and Brian have alluded to it. I think we have to define radical if we're going to answer this question, because I think radical change in automotive doesn't necessarily look like radical change somewhere else, right? For example, we've got roughly 17,000 new car dealers. It's been 20 years since the evolution of fixed operations electronic inspection systems. You have less than 50% of all of those rooftops actually practicing that way of doing business. So if we can't get the dealers educated and bought in to things that we've been doing for 20 years that have clear, concise, measurable results, then how do we get them to follow along in the evolution that's coming? Right? It's a great point and a great question, but we've got to we can't call evolution and change and radical thought just what the big consolidators are going to do. Sure, they lead the way and they kind of set the tone for the industry, but if the rest of the group doesn't follow along, then the results with customers continue to look like it always did. We still have stores that are practicing bad fixed operations policies. They're trying to sell things that customers don't need. They're going about those sales methods in the wrong way. If that type of thought stays in the public image, are we really viewed as having changed, right? So that's my 2 cents on it.
Brian, you're in a unique position because I still view you as a retailer from all the work you've done over the years and what you built there at Germain. Brian, your thoughts on some of the things that we're hearing?
Well, I think that Fred's dead on target. There's got to be clarity around what is the change should look like. I recently, I have a friend of mine that used to run Walt Disney World, and he told me about their digital transformation process. And there's so many parallels to what happened at Disney from 2010 to 2020 to what we're going through. And it's kind of like a sneak preview as to what the next 10 years will be like for us. And I talk to him frequently about this, and from the magic bands and getting the infrastructure and the Wi-Fi getting upgraded. All over the parks, they didn't have, it was still from the 70s, and they didn't have fiber optics. They didn't have keyless doors, and they had, they're 24/7, 365, so they can never shut down their business. They have to keep going, so they had to do it in the middle of the night, and they had to find solutions. And a lot of the things that they were going through, I'll give you one example. They were going through the magic band process in order to get people to go through the turnstiles, but they didn't communicate clearly. And I can't emphasize this enough. And this is a mistake that I made when I was back in retail, is I'm going so fast and I'm like looking to see where we're going, but I might not be communicating it along the way throughout the entire journey. Here's the North Star. Here's the lighthouse. Here's where we're going. And what happened with them is they didn't. So they started getting the people that were working at the taking the tickets were starting to sabotage the process. And because they thought that once the project was over, their jobs were going to be eliminated, which was the opposite of the truth. They had plans for that. And then after that, we're going to go to this project. So I think that taking everybody along on the ride and letting them know that this is not to replace you with a turnstile with a golden orb. It's to allow you to not sit there and do a mundane and redundant task. It's to allow you to delight guests once they come onto Main Street and be able to give you a more meaningful experience as well as the guests. And I think that's what we need to bring into dealerships. And yes, I am a retailer at heart, and I always will be.
I love it, Brian. Mike, your thoughts on some of the things that we're hearing from Brian and Fred?
I would agree. I think in the spirit of the Western theme that we have going on right now, there's a Toby Keith song from back in the 90s called "A Little Less Talk and a Lot More Action." You guys are probably familiar with that. I think we're going to have to remind ourselves of that this year. Is there's so many brilliant people out there, and there's so many great conferences, right? And we're kind of in the middle of conference season, right? Where you talk about so many good ideas, right? And you feel like your head is full of all these wonderful things you want to do, but what are you actually going to do about it? I think that's going to be where the rubber meets the road is. I work with some of the most talented, hardworking people in the automotive industry every day, right? We've got tremendous teams. But when we talk about things like mobile service, right, we talk about it for a long time. And when we talk about things like buying cars out of the service drive directly from consumers, and Brian, we've been working with your team, on how do we get better at that. There's a lot of talk about how are we going to do it? And then you follow up next month and, hey, how's it going? We're still talking about it. We're still figuring out, how we're going to do it. And we need a little less talk and a lot more action if we're really going to see results and drive radical change, because we've got a ton of great ideas about how to drive radical change, but really driving it is leadership, right? It takes leaders to drive that change every single day. So that's my thoughts.
Mike, while I have you, are there changes coming that you feel are not fully understood or are underappreciated by the retail automotive industry?
Yes, I think how fast things are going to change. It's really easy in the beginning of the year when it's January, February to start to say, well, it's seasonal. Things are always a little slower this time of year. It's going to pick up. It's not going to pick up, right? It's going to pick up if you put in the work. But we're coming from a time where, new car inventory, there was none, to now it's going to start to stack up, and it's already starting to stack up. Customers are willing to pay thousands of dollars over sticker or more for a used car even. And now we're negotiating and, we're forcing negative front end deals. We had no floor plan rates, and now they're rising at never before seen rates. I'd say we've got unprecedented amounts of trade equity the last couple of years, where if you bought a car from a customer, here was the bonus. You also got $10,000 to $15,000 equity check on top of that. It was really easy to buy cars from customers the last couple of years. Now it's a lot different story. So I think, this doesn't even factor in EV adoption, tech shortages, all these different things that we're going to have to really face this year. But I think we're underestimating a lot of things in the retail automotive industry that we're going to have to take action on and really lead through here. I think as a whole, as an industry, we're underestimating how hard this is going to be.
Ed, when I hear take action, Ed, I think of you over there at Bozard Ford Lincoln. Your thoughts?
Well, Mike talked about it earlier with the importance of fixed ops going forward. Yeah. As we move more and more into EV adoption, the brand's going to become less important. We've seen vehicle quality improve over the last 2 decades. But now as we shift into a vehicle that has 80% less moving parts, the importance of service isn't going to be there. So when they do need that service, it's our opportunity to create that ownership experience that we want them to have. The buying experience lasts weeks, days, maybe hours, but the ownership experience lasts years. And it's up to us to make that ownership experience the best it can possibly be. And we can't do that by doing things the way we've always done things. We have to find ways to do things differently. And there's no light on the dash that's going to tell a customer their EV needs to come in for service. We got to create annualized service visits, and we got to go to them for those things, just like sending somebody to your house to service your AC unit. That's what we got to do to these vehicles. And we have to highlight that. It's predictive. It's like Fred said with inspections. 2-3 decades ago, we started doing electronic inspections, but some of us still don't do it. Well, it's no different to take care of ourselves. The sooner we can find something going on with us, the easier it is to fix, or easier it is to correct, maybe change diet early on or whatever else. The later we find it, the harder it is to do. Same thing with a vehicle. So we have to get involved earlier and create the ownership experience that we want to have to create the brand loyalty, because the brand loyalty won't come from the shiny piece of metal. The brand loyalty is going to come from the ownership experience.
Love it. Steve, your thoughts on changes coming that are underappreciated by the retail industry?
Yeah, I think the biggest one right now is going to be the impact of software, because when you take a look at what's happening in the industry, the access to software both in the vehicle, so what the vehicle will become, because it's not going to be just like a glorified cell phone. I mean, that would be easy, but honestly, that's what people call table stakes. Okay, the thing has to perform, has to do the basic functions, and people like all these little extras they currently have. But I'm talking about the vehicle being more than that. It's going to be a hub. It's going to be a software platform. And when you start to take a look at the different ideas that Google, Microsoft, the rest of these guys have, that they're going to be able to unleash, and the speed with which software adjusts. If you take a look at how many times they tell you, oh, you need to update your laptop or you need to update this, okay? And you think of the life cycle of a car, you know, a while back it was 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, now it's 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, when you look at the life cycle of a computer, I don't think there's anyone on this screen has 11-year-old computer. Okay, I just don't. That kind of change and that kind of upgrade, both in the car and then I think operationally at the dealership, the access to RPA, the access to different types of technology that will allow you to be far more efficient, far more accurate, and really enhance that customer experience that Ed's talking about. And it does both. It enhances the customer experience and it will enhance the employee's experience. And I think that's the nature of software, and I think that's going to have a very big impact.
Brian, we are hearing about the software, it seems, every day. And, you know, are there, you know, your thoughts on how that plays in?
Well, Steve and I talked about this at length maybe 6 months or a year ago, and we were trying to map it out, journey map it, and figure it all out. And the conclusion that we ran into is that there is no like silver bullet software that's going to fix this solution. It takes work, and it's going to take some knowledge and some acumen and maybe some different business skills, or you're going to have to find somebody, which is what I did at Germain, is I found Jared Kilway to, you know, so that I could have somebody that could do that stuff on the fly, because to go through a traditional process and submit stuff into a queue and everything, we weren't able to be that agile in that environment. So I think that having that mindset that you can't just go to NADA and go to a booth and buy a widget and the way you used to, oh, this website better than this website, you know, those days are over. Now it's about connecting the actual technology and weaving it into your process so that they kind of become one. You know, I use the Disney analogy again. As guests were going through, they were finding out information of how they were buying and where the traffic patterns, so they could change the queues. The second thing is what Mike brought up. You know, we're working on implementation at AccuTrade, for instance. And what I'm coming to the realization of is no different than in retail. I've got to remove the roadblocks for the associates, and I've got to remove roadblocks for dealers now. And I've got to be able to create ways that are more sticky. We're releasing a QR code and Kling and table toppers for getting values on your vehicle in the service department. And that's going to be part of our standard package, where if a client's there, it'll just say, scan, you want to know how much your vehicle's worth? Scan me. And it'll go right into the experience, and also provide attribution for our dealers, because that's another thing that they don't need to be doing. So I think that, you know, it's starting with removing roadblocks and making the path clear for your associates first. The consumers is a byproduct of that. If you make it easier for your associates, it'll become easier for the consumers.
Brian, as a follow-up, will this connected software enabled vehicle, is this going to ultimately change the automotive retail business model?
Yes, but I don't think in ways that everybody does think. I think it's going to enhance it. I think it's going to increase the throughput of how many ROs an ASM can write, how many cars a vehicle, a salesperson can sell, how many vehicles they can acquire, and they can do it in a decentralized manner, no differently than with remote work. You know, what Ed's doing with these remote service vans. I mean, I picture a world, and we do business with the largest wholesaler, the second largest wholesaler in the world right now. And they have an amazing business model where they have single mothers and people scattered all throughout the United States that are acquiring vehicles. And the forward thinkers like Mike and what he's doing, they're seeing that, and right, it might not pay dividends today, but I think this is the most important thing. Is you take a look at anybody when some disruption comes in, like COVID, the ones that put the work in before that immediately saw a spike. So it might not be an overnight success, but you'll be poised to get your unfair share of the market when it does turn, and it's going to.
Great conversation, everybody. I want to go to our last question, our lightning round, and I want to start with Fred, and then we'll go to Ed and Steve and Brian, and we'll ask Mike to bring it home. And Ed, I know you're very much involved in this as well. Fred, what do you see as the biggest changes that we're going to need to be aware of, that will need to be made at the retail operation side over the next 5 to 10 years? What do you see as you look into your crystal ball?
It's a great question. And, I spent the last few years as the lead on the DMS,
Mm-hmm.
trying to stay ahead of what do we have to do to be ready for the dealers as those changes take place. And it's interesting. None of us here could say with any level of certainty that we know where we're going, right? It's not, as business leaders, it's not why we're the leaders. We're the leaders because we know how to innovate and react as things change. If I were a betting man and I were, able to actually predict and put my money behind it, I think Steve brought it up before. I think we start seeing sales guys also doing the F&I work. I think we see the model on the sales floor change dramatically. I think it has to. I think with the advent of all of these new OE opportunities coming up where customers are going to have a choice of dealing directly with an OE versus dealing with a independent freestanding dealership group. I think all of those things are going to change the way we have to react. And rather than predict where we're going to be, I think my prediction is we better be really, really sharp and really, really quick at being able to shift and change as those things come up, because we don't know what they're going to create.
Good point, Fred. Ed, your thoughts on biggest changes? Loaded question that'll need to be made by retail operations over the next 5-10 years.
Well, like what Fred said about one person handling it all, and we have shifted to single point of contact here as well, because that is important. Our customers have told us for years that we hate the F&I office, and we've done nothing about it. So that's one for an in-store transaction. But we also got to embrace remote transactions. We still resist it, and we'll do it if we have to. But we have to embrace remote transactions. And then on the fixed ops side, we have to embrace over-the-air updates. We got to control it. But it's much easier for you to call in with an appointment or set an appointment or whatever, and then I can call you and do a push update to where you never have to come in. Or if it's anything safety-wise, yes, maybe I have to come to you or you have to come in. But what if your vehicle improves twice a week because of over-the-air updates? You're doing other things to create the brand loyalty, and we got to do so many more things in the future to create brand loyalty than what we've ever done before. It's important for us to embrace them. And to promote them and to push them out there and to let customers experience them rather than block it.
Ed, how many mobile units today at Bozard Ford Lincoln?
Not near enough. We're running 10 and I could use 40.
Ed, can that model be replicated throughout the country at other dealerships?
Absolutely. Anything and everything we do here is duplicatable. We're not doing anything state of the art. We're doing things different. We're just looking, how can we improve this? How can we improve that? And then we find a way to go do it. Rather than talk about, man, if this was different, don't wait for change to happen. Create the change.
Lot less talk and a lot more action. Love it.
Absolutely. Mike hit it out of the park with that one.
Steve Woessner, biggest change is coming.
Yeah, I think, Ed's talked about it, but I do think that truly customer-driven operating systems in the dealership. In other words, your first lens is, how is this looking to the customer? Not how is this convenient for me and easy for me? And I think customers are going to have the ability to make so many choices and have so much information that, quite honestly, in many ways, they're going to be overwhelmed too. And they're going to be very happy if they have a place like Ed's place where they know somebody, they trust somebody. And I think that personal relationship is going to be critical. And how you're viewed within your local area by your customers is going to be the single biggest driver in your survivability in the future. It just is. And the more that mindset you have of let the technology take care of the grimbly stuff, don't stand there in front of the customer tacking on your little board, talk to them, engage them, speak to them, listen to what they have to say. Hear what they're saying so that you can truly understand. Because for most people, if their car's down, if there's a problem with it, that's a highly stressful situation that impacts so many other parts of their lives. And, you sitting there tacking away on your board to make sure you got the VIN number right, all of that stuff should be automatic. All of that stuff should just be populated based on a scan of a QR code, or as Brian talked about before. and then your ability to empathize, to speak to the customer. I think those skills are going to be extremely important in the future. And that's why I say working with technology as a partner is going to be a skill that employees are going to have. Because as I've said before, the computer is not going to take your job away, okay? The person who's going to take your job away is the guy who can work really, really well with technology and still be the one engaging the customer. That's the guy that's going to take your job away. So I think those skill set improvements are going to be critical going forward.
Brian Kramer, biggest changes coming.
So I think that one of the biggest changes is that everybody in the retail automotive side, and I think this is the most exciting time that I've in the history of automotive retail, really, if you embrace correctly. But I think that everybody needs to embrace the fact that it doesn't have to be perfect. It's about progress. It's not about perfection. And it doesn't have to be fully baked. And a lot of people fail to take action because they're waiting until they have the perfect plan. And the reality of it is it's like short sprints. You've got to go through, okay, where are we at on this? Do a pulse check. And the answers that we're looking for, at least that from my opinion, is they're not in the automotive industry because we haven't been there yet, right? But there's a lot of other verticals that have, and two that come to mind specifically are, the grocery industry, and the other industry that has gone through it is the cell phone industry. So they've gone from a OEM direct franchise model to a hybrid system, and with over-the-air updates. So I look to see what mistakes did they make and what can we learn from that to avoid those pitfalls and those landmines, and what happened to all the franchise operators of Verizon stores and AT&T and Singular and all those things that don't exist today, T-Mobile, that didn't make the digital transformation journey. And in retrospect, I'm sure a lot of them are looking at it and saying, why did I sell my franchise, or why didn't I adapt and become a multi-rooftop cell phone provider? So I think that that's a foreshadowing of the future. But really, the point with the cell phones and the grocery stores is that people expect the same experience now. Just like with Amazon, they expected it with those two. They're expecting the same level of service regarding whatever the product is. And we're just a product that needs to deliver that level of experience.
Mike Cavanaugh, you're going to have the last word.
All right, great. So, I mean, I think if we're talking about changes over the next, 10 years or so that we're going to have to be ready for in retail operations and what we can do to kind of navigate that, I think we focus a lot on the tactical things. We need to do this in service. We need to do this in sales. We need to do this in F&I. I really think there's a lot of leaders that hop on these, right? That really listen to all the great things that, smart folks like the guys on here have to say. I think you have to start to think about frameworks and your responsibility as a leader to be able to challenge the status quo constantly, right? To look at your business, right? If you are the fixed operations director, right? Look at your business and say, man, if the only reason we do it this way is because we've always done it this way, what do we need to look at differently, right? If you're a GSM, right? Look at that side of the business. If the only way we've ever done things this way is because we've always done them this way, let's look at it differently. And I would say the other thing is, don't let Tesla's stock going down or the kind of obvious demise of Carvana lull you into sleep. I see so many negative comments, and putting negativity out in the world and hoping anybody fails is just never a good recipe for happiness for anybody, right? So for one, I hope the industry stops it as a whole. But for two, don't let that lull you into sleep to think that, this model doesn't have any kind of merit or warrant, right? It may have been misexecuted, right? But there's a lot of consumers that want to be served in that way. And I would say, education-wise, if no one has heard of two books, and they're by a brilliant man, it's the late Clay Christensen, Harvard Business School professor. One is called Competing Against Luck, and it talks about the jobs to be done theory. I think that's a great one for people to look at to say, what job is the customer hiring you to do? It's not always what you think it is. And the other one is the innovator's dilemma. And it talks about why do big successful companies get disrupted? And it's because they're too focused on, I don't want to kill the golden goose, right? I'm making so much gross. I'm making so much net profit. I don't want to change because if I change, it means I'm compromising margin. But if you don't change and disrupt yourself, someone will disrupt you, right? So I would say as a leader, challenge the status quo, look at your business through a different lens, through a different framework, take advice from Brian, right? Look at other industries and see, what can I do to better serve my customers? But we're going to have to challenge the status quo and question, anything that's gotten us successful so far, because it's not going to get us as successful as we'd like to going forward.
What a great discussion. I want to thank Fred Fordin, Ed Roberts, Steve Woessner, Brian Kramer, and Mike Cavanaugh for your time here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable. Very impressive. A lot of notes. We'll have to come back and pick this up in the future. I like it a whole lot. A great discussion, everybody. The leading radical change in automotive retail panel here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
True Warranty's claims department is best in class with all techs ASE certified. Claims are handled according to the policies that you define. Prompt response times and direct communication with our techs ensure that your service departments are always happy.
The number one benefit of Radiant Ride is convenience for the customer. Whenever they're coming in for maintenance, they're able to come in, get their basic services done, but also take care of the windshields, the wheels, the dents at the same time, allowing us to make it a seamless effort for them.
It's a great benefit, and I've had several customers that I personally know that have purchased Radiant Ride and have told me how great it is. They know that they got a windshield star or other issue with the vehicle, and they don't have to panic because they know, hey, when I go in to get my car serviced next, I'll just get it all taken care of at once, and they love the convenience.
Well, that's what's worked out so well. We've been able to just take care of the regularly scheduled maintenance along with any warranty work or whatever, and we can take care of, what the program has to offer. And so you can encompass the whole experience under one umbrella, and that's what's worked so well for us.
There's a lot of great benefits to Radiant Ride, especially the customer retention. Being able to have customers come back to your dealership. The convenience factor of it, being local, and if there's somebody far away, guess what? Radiant Ride will go to them as well. To be able to have a product that, that takes care of all those things, and for a customer to come into a dealership where they bought it from, and for us to be able to hold on to that customer, it's important. It just brings them back every time, and if they're in here for their third, fourth, fifth year of issues, and at that time they're looking at buying a new car because they're so well taken care of, it's a great tool for the dealership as well. So it's a win-win situation for everybody.
With Radiant Ride, that helps us become a one-stop shop for all their needs. We don't have to, they don't have to worry about going anywhere else for any of their vehicle needs at all. There's other dealers out there. The great thing about Radiant Ride is the support behind the scenes. If there's ever any issues or questionable situations, Radiant Ride always stands behind the product and is there for the customer.
Howdy, partners! I reckon it's time to place your vote for the Best Practice Awards. Take a moment now to scan the QR code on your screen to vote for the Best Practice Awards that will be announced at the end of Day 4. Remember, every vote counts, so make sure to vote for the 5 speakers or panelists whom you think are the best and brightest speakers on the Fixed Ops Roundtable. And don't forget, you can only vote once.